Chapter 535. The pillar of light soared into the sky and wrapped around Louis. A powerful airflow surged, causing his hair and clothes to flutter in the wind. Attacks came from all directions, but they were all blocked by the pillar of light. Asterisk Kong. Asterisk something fell from the sky and landed in front of Louis. In an instant, a violent shockwave swept out from where Louis was standing. The surrounding myriad Demon Ridge cultivators were thrown off their feet by the impact. The group of people stabilized themselves with great difficulty. When they looked up again, they saw that Lu Yi had already raised his hand and pressed against the Heaven's Fate pillar in front of him. "Until we meet again." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure quickly faded and disappeared. All the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators stared at him. No matter how unwilling they were, there was nothing they could do. In the end, Lu Yi escaped. This time, there were at least 800 myriad Demons Ridge cultivators participating in the hunt for Luia. There were no less than 29th Order cultivators. With such a large lineup, not to mention a 3rd Order Cloud River Realm cultivator, even a true Lake Realm cultivator would be able to put up a fight. But in the end, they still failed. The rare golden body token, the vermilion bird, one of the 4 symbols divine beasts, which had the power to destroy heaven and earth, and the Heaven's Fate pillar was summoned by Lu Yi alone. Any one of these things was enough to shock anyone, but they all appeared on one person. But it was precisely because of these incredible things that Lu Yi, a 3rd Order cultivator, was able to escape in the end. Looking at the Heaven's Fate pillar descending from the sky, the group of 9th Order cultivators had ugly expressions. The hunting ground was closed, and Lu Yi had escaped. It was meaningless to blame the heavens and others. After a while, many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators dispersed, leaving behind only the Heaven's Fate pillar, which recorded all the previous events. With just a 3rd Order cultivation, Lu Yi fought against nearly 1,000 myriad Demon Ridge cultivators, including many 8th and 9th Order cultivators, and still managed to escape. It was foreseeable that after this battle, Lu Ye's name would spread far and wide. In the future, when he entered the Cloud River battlefield again, there would be many people watching him. In the divine secret palace of the Ao Mountain of the military province, Lu Ye's blood-stained figure suddenly appeared. He staggered slightly and hurriedly raised his hand to support the divine secret pillar in front of him so that he would not fall down. When cultivators entered the Cloudy River battlefield from their sect, they had many choices. They could choose the location they wanted to enter, as long as that location was connected to the Tianji pillar. However, if one wanted to return from the Cloud River battlefield, they could only return to their sect's heaven's secret palace. There was no other choice. This was related to the mark on the back of a cultivator's hand. Find second senior sister," he ordered softly. Immediately flashed out of Hupo's body and ran outside. A moment later, Shui Yuan's figure rushed into Divine Secret Hall and saw Lu Ye's miserable appearance at a glance, causing her brow to furrow. "How did you end up like this?" "It's a long story." Lu Yi squeezed out a smile at her, forcefully clinging onto his last shred of clarity. "Senior sister, save me." As soon as his voice fell, his body went limp and fell to the ground. Even though he was now a 3rd Order Cloud River Realm cultivator, the aftereffects of using the Fire Phoenix Spirit Rune were still somewhat unbearable. When he was still in the Cloudy River battlefield, he did not dare to pass out. Now that he had returned to his sect, his mind relaxed and he could no longer hold on. Shui Yuan's eyes were sharp and her hands were quick, supporting him in one go. Lu Ye's consciousness drifted in and out of consciousness. Boundless exhaustion constantly assaulted every part of his body. There were several times when he felt as if he was in a dream, and Lu Yi even heard the sect leader's gentle voice after an unknown amount of time. He suddenly woke up from his coma. The faint sound of water ripples entered his ears. Lu Yi opened his eyes and was slightly dazed for a moment before slowly coming back to his senses. He was currently sitting in a bathtub filled with a green medicinal liquid. Hoopa was swimming in front of him with a satisfied expression. As if he sensed Lu Ye's gaze, Hoopa looked up and let out a whimper. Hearing the movement, Yi flashed in and said in surprise, "Lu Yi, you're awake." Lu Yi nodded and checked his condition. Very good, his injuries were completely healed. Even the internal injuries that had accumulated during this period had disappeared without a trace. Obviously, it was due to Shui Yuan's help. His body was still weak and there was not much spirit energy left in it. However, this was not a big problem. He just needed to rest for a day or two. "How long have I been asleep?" 2 days. Lu Yi nodded. Second senior sister was indeed worthy of being called second senior sister. Her attainments in medical skills were much better than Hua Xi's. Back then, when he first used the Fire Phoenix spirit mark in the Myriad Poison Forest, Hua Xi had treated him for many days before he slowly recovered. However, his second senior sister only needed 2 days to fully recover. He lowered his head and checked his battlefield mark. Name, Lu Yi. Identity, Blue Blood, Sect Disciple. Cultivation, Third Order Cloud River Realm. Location, War Provinces Ao Mountain. Merit, 6,120 points. Battle points, 56 points. More than 100,000 merit points were suddenly reduced to a fraction. The price of requesting the Heaven's Fate Pillar was too high. Besides the time when he spent a huge sum of merit points to buy the Restoring Aperture Pill for fourth senior brother. This was the second time he had spent so much. However, the Restoring Aperture Pill could at least help his fourth senior brother repair his spirit aperture. The Heaven's Fate Pillar could only help him escape back to the 9 provinces. The Heaven's Fate Pillar could not be taken away. It would stay where it was. This time, if not for the fact that he had no other choice, Lu Yi would not have requested the Heaven's Fate Pillar. 100,000 merit points could buy a lot of things in the Heaven's Fate Treasure House. While he was checking, Shui Yuan walked in and asked casually, "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine." "Good. Since you're back, stay in the sect and recuperate. Don't run around." "Yes." Shui Yuan had heard about Lu Ye's experience in the Cloud River battlefield from Yi. She was angry at the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators for bullying the weak, but she also felt sorry for her junior brother. However, she was only at the Spirit Sea realm, so she could not help Lu Yi. When Lu Yi was in the Spirit Stream battlefield, she could force her way in and help him, but she could not enter the Cloud River battlefield. He stepped forward and checked Lu Ye's condition. After confirming that he was really fine, he felt relieved. Second senior sister. I'm going to put on my clothes. I took off your clothes. What haven't I seen before?" Shui Yuan rolled her eyes at him and walked out the door. Lu Yi was embarrassed. A moment later, a neatly dressed Lu Yi walked out of the room. The dazzling sunlight made him squint slightly. The chirping of birds and insects lingered in his ears, and the fragrance of flowers filled his nose. He stretched and felt that such a peaceful day was really comfortable. He called Yi and bowed to the sect master to listen to his teachings. When he walked out of the sect master's room, he smelled a mouth-watering fragrance. He followed the fragrance to the food hall. As expected, his second senior sister had already prepared a table full of delicious food. Compared to the food Hua Xi made, his second senior sister's cooking was undoubtedly 100 times better. However, although Hua Xi's food did not look good, its effects were not bad. As long as one's mind was strong enough, there was no psychological barrier to eating it. After stuffing himself with food, he bid farewell to Shui Yuan and flew straight to the Green Bamboo Peak. Green Bamboo Peak was Lu Ye's spirit mountain in the Blue Blood sect. He was also the peak master of Green Bamboo Peak. When he had reached the Cloud River realm, Shui Yuan had asked him to choose a spirit mountain and Yi had chosen Green Bamboo Peak. This spirit mountain was not far from the Guardian Peak. He had asked many of his junior brothers and sisters to help build it. However, not long after reaching the Cloud River realm, Lu Yi entered the Cloud River battlefield, so he did not spend much time at Green Bamboo Peak. Now that he arrived, he could see the pavilions on the Spirit Mountain from afar. A sea of clouds rolled over the Spirit Mountain, and it was quite a celestial scene. After landing on the Spirit Mountain, he casually found a bedchamber and walked in, meditating in peace. Right now, the Blue Blood sect was not very lively. This was because the cultivation level of the Blue Blood sect disciples was generally low. Aside from him and Giant Armor, everyone else was at the Spirit Stream tier. Thus, they basically stayed at the Spirit Stream battlefield to cultivate and very rarely returned to the sect. However, when the cultivation level of the disciples gradually increased in the future, the sect would definitely slowly become lively. Thinking about it, Hua Xiai should be about to reach the Cloud River tier. He silently swallowed a spirit pill, meditated, and recovered. One day later, Lu Yi flew out of Green Bamboo Peak, full of energy. He first went to the Moon Lake to catch a few fish, and then came to the Guardian Peak. He found Shui Yuan and said, "Senior sister, I want to enter the Spirit Stream battlefield." Shui Yuan asked curiously, "Why are you entering the Spirit Stream battlefield?" Cloud River Realm cultivators had to pay some merit points to enter the Spirit Stream battlefield. The higher their cultivation, the more merit points they had to pay. Take Shui Yuan's previous actions as an example. She had spent thousands of merit points to enter the Spirit Stream battlefield. Revenge. When he left the Cloud River battlefield, Lu Yi had told the Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators that he would return today's favor 100-fold in the future. The Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators only thought that he was just saying it. After all, anyone who had suffered such a big loss and was almost killed would definitely not let it go. However, Lu Yi was obviously not just saying it. He had long since made up his mind to go to the Spirit Stream battlefield to cause trouble. He might not be able to defeat those Cloud River Realm 8th or 9th Order cultivators, but he could defeat those Spirit Stream Realm cultivators. If others bullied the weak to deal with him, then he would also bully the weak. With his identity as the Spirit Stream Overlord, who in the Spirit Stream realm could be his opponent, without asking for anything else, he would get back the 100,000 merit points and the golden body token he had lost in the Spirit Stream battlefield no matter what. Shui Yuan immediately understood what Lu Yi was planning. She frowned and tried to persuade him. Little junior brother, high-level cultivators can't do whatever they want in the Spirit Stream battlefield. Even if you are stronger than them, if you kill someone, you will be punished by the heavens. This is a kind of protection the heavens give to low-level cultivators. I know. So I want to ask Senior Sister how you resisted the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Lu Yao remembered the first time he saw Shui Yuan. She held an exaggerated war scythe in her hands as she slaughtered in all directions, protecting him from harm. The terrifying soul-extinguishing divine thunder lingered around her, but her expression didn't change at all. No matter how much time had passed, Lu Yi would always feel a trace of warmth in his heart whenever he recalled that smile. Chapter 536. The soul-extinguishing lightning was a punishment from heaven, and there was no way to avoid it. Therefore, Lu Yi wanted to know how his second senior sister had managed to block it. As long as he could solve this problem, he would be able to do whatever he wanted in the Spirit Stream battlefield. Shui Yuan shook her head. I can't resist it. I can only endure it. After a pause, she continued, My situation is special, you should know. She raised her hand to cover her chest. Since I was born, there has been another me inside my body. It is the Wei Yang that you have met before. However, she rarely shows herself. She only shows herself when I lose control of my emotions. Lu Yi nodded. When he first came to the Blue Blood sect, he did not know about this. When he first saw Shui Yuan, he felt that his eldest senior sister and second senior sister looked alike. But in comparison, his second senior sister was a miniature version of his eldest senior sister. At that time, he thought that these two senior sisters were biological sisters. However, after spending a few years together, Lu Yi had deduced some things from some clues. Therefore, he was not surprised to hear Shui Yuan say it herself. She is very special, her endurance is extremely high, so even if she killed some people in the spirit stream battlefield, the soul-extinguishing lightning did not affect her too much. Of course, she has her own limits, and once she exceeds them, she will not be able to bear it, Shui Yuan continued. She has fought twice in the spirit stream battlefield before, and each time she returned, she would immediately fall into a deep sleep. The soul-extinguishing lightning targeted her, so it did not affect me. The 2 times Wei Yang had fought, once on Golden Light Peak, and once after Lu Yi was poisoned in Heaven Expansect. After entering the spirit stream battlefield, the more people you kill, the more powerful the soul-extinguishing lightning will be. Correspondingly, it will last longer. So, little junior brother, if you enter the spirit stream battlefield, it is best not to kill too many people. Although I have never experienced the soul-extinguishing lightning's power, it is not something to be trifled with. If something goes wrong, it may cause damage to your spirit. If that happens, things will become troublesome. Is there no other way? Lu Yi was unwilling to give up. Shui Yuan shook her head. This is heaven's punishment. I know. Seeing the look on his face, Shui Yuan could tell that Lu Yi was unwilling to give up and that he would definitely have to go to the spirit stream battlefield. No matter what you do, she said, you have to protect yourself. Don't take any risks. After leaving Shui Yuan's place, Lu Yi felt somewhat depressed. If he couldn't kill too many people in the spirit stream battlefield, then he would definitely be restricted. Perhaps he could bring Little Gray with him? When the time came, he would break the array and let Little Gray kill them. He just did not know if Little Gray was at the encampment. The last time he had left the spirit stream battlefield, he had already set Little Gray free. It had been guarding an empty encampment for so many years only because of the last instructions of its dead senior brother. Xiao Hui could be considered to be loyal and righteous. No matter what, he would have to enter the spirit stream battlefield first. If he really couldn't do it, then he would have to kill as few people as possible. Lu Yi walked into the Heavenly Fate Hall and placed his hand on the Heavenly Fate pillar. After some investigation, he realized that he could not enter the Cloudy River battlefield. It seemed that he would have to wait for a month to pass. He could enter the Spirit Stream battlefield, but according to the feedback from the Heaven's Fate pillar, with his current cultivation base, he would have to pay a deduction of 500 merit points. That was not much. With a thought, Lu Yi immediately disappeared and appeared in the Blue Blood Sect's encampment. An inexplicable force suddenly descended, and Lu Yi felt that his spirit energy was greatly suppressed. The river of spirit energy that had been flowing endlessly in his body also stopped circulating. His third-order cloud river realm cultivation rapidly fell as all his spirit energy stagnated in his spirit aperture. He understood that this was the suppression of the Heavenly Fate pillar. Any cultivator with a cultivation base higher than the spirit stream stage would be suppressed to the point where their cultivation base would be reduced to the highest level of the spirit stream stage. He tried to circulate the spirit energy in his spirit aperture according to the Great Sun colored glass secret arts route. Soon, the suppressed spirit energy began circulating and his cultivation base slowly recovered. First order, second order, third order, until he reached the 9th heaven realm. While he was recovering his strength, the nearby disciples also noticed him, and someone exclaimed, "Is that 5th senior brother?" They almost suspected that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Their 5th senior brother had already broken through to the Cloud River realm and left the Spirit Stream battlefield. So how could he suddenly appear here? They rubbed their eyes to make sure they weren't playing tricks on them. It really was their 5th senior brother. Hearing the shout, the others also looked in the direction of the voice. For a moment the greetings were endless. Soon, the news of Lu Ye's appearance spread. After a short while, on the spirit peak where Xiao Hui was, Lu Yi looked at the empty eagle nest and felt a little helpless. Xiao Hui didn't seem to be in the encampment, which destroyed his original plan of bringing Xiao Hui to kill people. Someone flew over on a flying spirit artifact and landed beside Lu Yi, bowing respectfully. "Greetings, fifth senior brother." Lu Yi turned his head and found that this person looked familiar. He should be one of the first cultivators to join the Blue Blood sect, but he couldn't remember his name at the moment. "You're Tao Zhengyu, the current garrison envoy." The garrison envoy and deputy envoy of the Blue Blood sect's encampment had been replaced several times already. The main reason was that there was now an abundance of cultivation resources, and the world energy in the encampment was rich, so the disciples' cultivation speed was very fast. They were located in the outermost circle of the battlefield and generally had to leave after reaching the Eighth Order, so whether it was the garrison envoy or deputy envoy, they couldn't stay for too long. In this regard, they were inferior to the inner and core circles. The garrison envoys and deputy envoys of the inner and core circles could stay longer. Lu Yi nodded and asked again, "What about Xiao Hui?" "I'm not sure. He is rarely in the encampment now. Sometimes he will come back, but generally he won't stay for long." Tao Zhengyu replied while observing Lu Ye's expression. He didn't know why Lu Yi suddenly appeared in the spirit stream battlefield, but after reflecting on his actions after taking over as the garrison envoy, he didn't seem to have made any mistakes, so he asked cautiously, "Is there something fifth senior brother needs to do here?" "And there is something," Lu Yi replied casually, then stood in place and pondered. Xiao Hui had disappeared without a trace, and it wasn't realistic to look for him right now. Without Xiao Hui, he wouldn't be able to kill too many people. Without killing people, the sects of the Myriad Demon Ridge wouldn't be too afraid of him. How was he going to get back the 100,000 merit points and golden body tokens he had lost? Or was he just going to break through their arrays to vent his anger? With his current attainments in the Tao of array formations, the great arrays of the Myriad Demon Ridge sects wouldn't be able to stop him. If he just wanted to break through their arrays to vent his anger, there wouldn't be enough benefits, so there wasn't much point in doing so. This left Lu Yi in a dilemma. Sure enough, some things wouldn't be as smooth as he thought. There would always be many twists and turns. Since Lu Yi didn't speak, Tao Zhengyu could only stand to the side, feeling the pressure. After a long time, Lu Yi said, "Forget it. Come with me, and we'll get whatever we can." No matter what, once he took action this time, he would definitely alarm all the sects of the Myriad Demon Ridge, who wouldn't be afraid of the return of the exterminating sect leaf. Under the premise that he couldn't kill too many people, Lu Yi estimated that he would only be able to take down 1 or 2 sects at most. Bringing along his own guardian would be a good opportunity to plunder the blessings of other sects' heaven's fate pillars. Summoning his own flight-type spirit artifact, Lu Yi took Tao Zhengyu and soared into the sky. Tao Zhengyu was confused. He had no idea what Lu Yi was going to do, but he didn't ask much and could only follow silently. The journey forward was calm and peaceful. From the outermost ring of the battlefield to the core, it was a long journey. If Lu Yi could exert the strength of a third-order Cloud River Realm cultivator, it wouldn't take him 2 or 3 days, but right now he could only exert the strength of Tianjiu, so the journey would take twice as long. Fortunately, his current flight-type spirit artifact was a mid-rank spirit artifact, which was faster than a low-rank spirit artifact. The only drawback was that it consumed a lot of spirit chi. There was little rest along the way, and Tao Zhengyu had a profound understanding of his fifth senior brother's terrifying heritage. Generally speaking, it would be difficult for a cultivator to replenish their spirit chi after flying for a long time, but his fifth senior brother was always on the move except for an hour of rest every day. In just 4 days, the two arrived at the core. Lu Yi took out the map of the Spirit Stream battlefield and checked it, making a choice between New Moon Sect and Cloud Sun Sect. New Moon Sect was Tansheng Sect. Lu Yi had confirmed this when he chatted with Li Baxin before, while Cloud Sun Sect was Wei Kei's sect. Both sects were in the core, so Lu Yi wasn't unfamiliar with them. After all, he had received safety money from them before, so even if he didn't have any dealings with them, he had at least heard of them. Since he could only take one or two sects, he naturally had to choose carefully. In the end, he decided to take action against New Moon Sect. The reason why he was imprisoned in the hunting ground, forced to use the Golden Body Token, and spent 100,000 merit points to invite the Heaven's Fate Pillar, was because Tansheng used the tracking disc. It could be said that the source of his pursuit was Tansheng. Every injustice had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor, so he naturally had to make up for his losses with New Moon Sect. After flying for another half a day, they finally arrived 10 kilometers away from New Moon Sect Station. Lu Yi pressed down on the flight-type spirit artifact, grabbed Hupa, and threw it to Tao Zhengyu. Wait here. Tao Zhengyu took Hupa, nodded, and stood in place obediently. Lu Yi rushed straight to New Moon Sect Station. He would definitely have to fight with New Moon Sect's cultivators this time, so it would be inconvenient to bring Tao Zhengyu, a 7th Order cultivator. Leaving him here, with Hupa and Yi guarding him, he wouldn't have to worry about his safety. 10 kilometers was covered in the blink of an eye. In New Moon Sect Station, the light curtain of the protective array was like an inverted bowl. The light curtain wasn't thick, and it could be seen that the protective array's power hadn't been activated too much. Under normal circumstances, no one would always think of attacking someone else's station, except for Blue Blood Sect's Lu Yi. When he was at the Spirit Stream battlefield, he stirred up chaos. Now that he had broken through to the Cloud River realm, the people of Myriad Demon Ridge could finally live a comfortable life. However, no one expected that, in less than 3 months, the God of Plague would actually come back. Chapter 537. Outside New Moon Sect Station, Lu Yi landed and activated his Insight Spirit inscriptions to observe the nodes of the Spirit Array. Immediately, a cultivator in charge of guarding the place noticed his presence and flew over. He looked at him from across the Great Formation and shouted in a low voice, "Who are you?" A sneaky figure had suddenly appeared outside their spirit array, seemingly harboring evil intentions, so he naturally wouldn't be polite. Lu Yi glanced at him indifferently. "Who do you think I look like?" This question stunned the cultivator, but when he took a closer look, he suddenly felt that this person looked familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. But he was sure that he had never seen this person before, so he couldn't remember where this inexplicable sense of familiarity came from. Just as he was about to ask again, Lu Yi had already found the location of the nodes and arrived there in a flash, throwing out array flags one after another. If he could use his 3rd Order Cloud River realm cultivation, Lu Yi estimated that he could break through the spirit array with brute force. After all, the power of the spirit array had not been fully activated and was only operating at its most basic level. But under the premise that he could only use Tianjiu's strength, brute force was unrealistic, so it was better to sneak in. "What are you doing?" Seeing Lu Yi's actions, the cultivator asked again. Lu Yi didn't speak, but his hands didn't stop moving. The cultivator's expression changed, and he carefully looked at Lu Yi again, finally remembering why he felt that this person's face was familiar. He had never seen Lu Yi in person, but he had seen a portrait of him. However, Lu Yi had left the Spirit Stream battlefield for nearly 3 months, so he didn't expect that he would appear here again, much less outside his own station. "You're the sect exterminating Leaf," the cultivator exclaimed as he stumbled back, as if Lu Yi was some kind of scourge that he couldn't avoid. Then he turned around, summoned his spirit artifact, and flew into the station, shouting as he flew, "The sect exterminating Leaf is here! The sect exterminating Leaf is here!" Disaster was imminent, and the sect exterminating Leaf was here. Their station was probably going to be destroyed. His shouts alarmed many New Moon sect cultivators, and they were all shocked. An angry roar sounded. "Who's talking nonsense?" As the voice sounded, a burly man flew over on his artifact. "Senior brother Lei Feng, the sect exterminating leaf is here." When the cultivator who had just escaped saw him, he quickly reported. Lei Feng was the guardian of the New Moon sect's outpost, and was currently ranked 58th on the Spirit Stream list. It could be said that he was the most powerful cultivator in the New Moon sect's outpost. "Who's here?" Frowning, he wondered if he had heard wrongly. "The sect exterminating leaf. Sex Lu Ye." "Bullshit!" He scolded. "That bastard advanced to Cloud River 3 months ago. He should be in the Cloud River battlefield right now. Why would he come here?" "Senior brother, eyes, sex cultivator leaf Yi. Sect exterminating leaf sect." Layden's brows furrowed. "Perhaps someone looks a lot like Yi the Destroyer? Yi, sect, and sect. But he's breaking the formation." "Formation Yi." Lei Feng was shocked. At this moment, the jade pendant that controlled the defensive array moved. Before he could take it out to check, he saw a streak of light rush over from the distance, arriving nearby in the blink of an eye. Lei Feng looked over and couldn't help but gasp. It really was the sect exterminating leaf. Speaking of which, he had interacted with Lu Ye before, back when New Moon sect had trapped Lu Ye on the outskirts of the 10,000 Poisons Forest. They had also participated. At that time, Lei Feng had led a few disciples. Thus, he had seen Lu Ye before. Of course, Lu Ye definitely had no impression of him, because there were too many cultivators from the 10,000 Demons Ridge who had made things difficult for him. Who could remember clearly? Why had the sect exterminating leaf returned to the Spirit Stream battlefield? And why had he come to their station? Lei Feng's mind was filled with questions. Although his expression was serious, he didn't panic. If Lu Ye's cultivation was still at the 9 Heavens tier, he would be nervous. However, Lu Ye had entered the Spirit Stream battlefield with a Cloud River tier cultivation, so there was no need for him to be nervous. Lei Feng definitely couldn't defeat him. Lu Ye's many terrifying achievements in the Spirit Stream battlefield were in front of him, so Lei Feng knew his own limits. But so what? Did Lu Ye dare to kill? The punishment of Heaven's secret was no joke. If high-level cultivators could really kill as they pleased in the Spirit Stream battlefield, then the stations of the various large sects would have been flattened long ago. Now the question was, what was this guy doing here? Lei Feng was certain that Lu Ye didn't come with good intentions. After all, they weren't on the same side. To the various large sects of the 10,000 Demons Ridge, Lu Ye carried a blood feud. 2 years ago, who knew how many cultivators from the 10,000 Demons Ridge had died at his hands? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he killed people like flies. With this thought, Lei Feng took a few steps forward and looked at Lu Ye with a serious expression. "Fellow cultivator Lu, why did you come to New Moon Sect Station instead of making a fortune in the Cloud River battlefield?" "Tan Sheng, is he from New Moon Sect?" Lu Ye asked indifferently, his hand on the hilt of his saber. Lei Feng frowned when he heard this. "He is my elder brother. What advice does fellow cultivator Lu have for me?" "You're Tan Sheng's younger brother." Lu Ye raised his eyebrows. This was an unexpected gain. "Yes, very good." Lu Ye nodded. "Tan Sheng took good care of me on the Cloud River battlefield. Today, I've come to repay his kindness." When the last word fell, Lu Ye had already left behind an afterimage, pouncing straight at the woman. Although Lei Feng had been on guard, he clearly hadn't expected Lu Ye to be so decisive. This was completely different from what he had imagined. In his mind, Lu Ye, a Cloud River tier cultivator, wouldn't dare to kill indiscriminately in the Spirit Stream battlefield. Otherwise, the soul-extinguishing divine lightning wouldn't be easy to endure. Who would have thought that Liu Ye would really attack? Surrounded by a great sense of danger, Layden hastily summoned a spirit artifact shield and imbued it with his own spirit energy to block in front of him. In the next instant, there was a loud boom, and Lei Feng's entire body was smashed to the ground. The overwhelming power caused his eyes to widen. What shocked him even more was that his spirit tool shield had dimmed under this attack, and its spirituality had been greatly damaged. Lei Feng's cultivation level was Heaven 9, and he was ranked in the 50s on the Spirit Stream battlefield. Even in the Spirit Stream battlefield, he could be considered a powerful cultivator. Liu Ye could only display the cultivation level of Heaven 9, yet he had almost broken through Lei Feng's defenses with a single attack. How terrifying was that? Lei Feng had never truly fought with Liu Ye before. Thus, although he knew that Liu Ye was very powerful, he didn't know exactly how powerful he was. Until now. Senior Brother Tan, the surrounding cultivators of the New Moon sect, all cried out in alarm when they saw Lei Feng fall. At the same time, Lei Feng felt another fierce attack coming from his spirit tool shield. With a crashing sound, the 9th limit low-grade defensive spiritual tool was completely shattered, revealing Layden's panic-stricken face. Liu Ye followed closely behind him, and his mountain-coiling saber slashed horizontally. Lei Feng had no more spirit tools to use now, so he could only forcefully circulate his spiritual power and blood qi to form a protective barrier around his body. The mountain-coiling saber fell, and blood splattered everywhere. Lei Feng fell heavily to the ground, a massive gash on his abdomen. One could almost see his internal organs. Lei Feng's hair stood on end, and he felt as if death had been so close to him. If not for the fact that he was a body cultivator with thick skin and thick flesh, he would definitely have been cut in half by that slash. Liu Ye was slightly surprised to see that Lei Feng was still alive. He sighed with emotion. The physical body of a body cultivator was indeed much stronger than that of cultivators of the same level. Just as he was about to rush over and give Lei Feng another slash, the sound of air being torn apart rang out. How could the cultivators of the New Moon sect hold back when their guardian was attacked? Who cared if he was Liu Ye or Liu Ye? Let's fight first and talk later. There were so many of them, so there was no reason for them to be afraid of one person. In an instant, spells and spirit tools shot out, attacking Liu Ye from all directions. Left with no choice, Liu Ye could only withdraw his killing intent and dodge the attacks. At the same time, the weapon box at his waist buzzed, and 9 spirit tools flew out. The scene was extremely chaotic. Even more cultivators of the New Moon sect were alarmed and rushed over. Beside Lei Feng, a medical cultivator ran over to check on his injuries and treat him. Lei Feng himself shouted angrily, "Liu Ye, you're a Cloud River tier cultivator. Instead of cultivating in the Cloud River battlefield, you came to the Spirit Stream battlefield to show off your strength. Do you really think that the New Moon sect is afraid of you? I know. My brother must have taught you a lesson in the Cloud River battlefield. You're no match for him, so you came here to bully the weak. You're really shameless." When Liu Ye suddenly asked about Tan Sheng, he vaguely guessed in his heart. Although he did not dare to say for sure, he was definitely close to the truth. Otherwise, there was no reason for Sect Destroying Ye to come to the New Moon sect's base. Following his angry shout, a scream suddenly rang out. The cultivators of the New Moon sect had different levels of cultivation. Although Liu Ye fought against many alone, he had experienced many similar situations since he started cultivating. He had a lot of experience on how to deal with such situations. His figure moved, defended, and attacked with spirit tools. Finally, a cultivator of the New Moon sect was caught off guard and was killed by his spirit tool. Blood and corpses fell from the sky. Lei Feng was furious. "You dare to kill!" He never thought that Liu Ye would really dare to kill someone here. Was he not afraid of being punished by the heavens? After killing one of them, Lu Ye's body suddenly glowed with purple light. If one looked closely, they would see that it was not purple light at all. Instead, it was purple lightning swimming around his body. The soul-destroying divine lightning hit him, and Lu Ye's eyelids twitched. There was no other reason. It was too painful. Since he started cultivating, he had suffered countless injuries, big and small. There were even a few times when he was seriously injured to the point of fainting. However, there had never been an injury that he felt was unbearable. The punishment of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder gave people an unbearable feeling. This kind of pain did not just come from the physical body, but also from the soul. It was as if there were countless ants madly gnawing at his body, making him suffer torturous torture. To be continued. Chapter 538. As a Cloud River tier cultivator, coming to the Spirit Stream battlefield to bully the weak was indeed not very good. If Tan Sheng had really made Lu Yi suffer such a great loss by himself, he would not have acted like this. His skills were inferior, so there was nothing to say. He could only work hard to cultivate, increase his strength, and then think of a way to get revenge. However, Tan Sheng had used the second effect of the tracking plate, making it impossible for him to hide in the hunting ground. In the end, he had been surrounded by the elites of the Myriad Demon's Ridge, unable to escape. He had used the extremely precious Golden Body Medallion and spent 100,000 merit points, suffering heavy losses. The origin of the hunting ground incident was Tan Sheng, so the losses could only be recovered from the New Moon sect. At the same time, it was also a kind of declaration. If they could not kill him, then they would have to suffer his revenge. In the New Moon sect's encampment, after killing one person, purple lightning lingered around Lu Ye's body. The punishment of the heavens immediately descended. The pain brought by the soul-extinguishing divine lightning was simply unbearable. Before coming here, he had tried to overestimate the power of the soul-extinguishing divine lightning, but in the end he found that he had still underestimated it. He had only killed one person, and if he killed more, the punishment would be even more severe. Lu Yi estimated that with his current endurance, he would reach his limit after killing 5 or 6 people at most. At that time, even if he did not die, he would lose the ability to move. Although there were not many cultivators in the New Moon sect's encampment, there were at least 100 or 200 people. With only a few people, it would be difficult to accomplish anything. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, a strange movement suddenly came from his source aperture, and with that movement the pain he was suffering from both his body and mind was greatly alleviated. Lu Ye's heart trembled, and he moved his body to dodge one attack after another. At the same time, he divided a part of his attention to investigate his source spiritual cavity. As he looked, he saw that the talent tree in his source spiritual cavity was blooming with flames, as if the entire tree was burning. As the flames on the talent tree rose and tumbled, a large amount of gray mist was evaporated. The purple lightning lingering around his body was disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The talent tree could burn away the soul-extinguishing divine lightning. This discovery surprised Lu Yi greatly, but after thinking about it carefully, it made sense. For a long time, the talent tree had been able to burn away the harmful energies that invaded the body. Many poisons were the same. Therefore, as long as the talent tree had enough fuel, Lu Yi would be immune to all poisons. Although the soul-extinguishing divine thunder was a punishment from the heavens that couldn't be avoided, it was the same as poison. To Lu Yi, both were harmful energies that invaded the body. Since that was the case, the talent tree could naturally burn it. However, in comparison, the movement of burning the soul-extinguishing divine lightning was much greater than the movement of burning the poison. It seemed that the consumption of fuel was also greater. In just a short moment, Lu Yi felt his entire body lighten, and the purple lightning that wrapped around his body disappeared. Originally, he had some scruples when he attacked because he did not dare to kill too many people. He only planned to kill a few key figures to scare off the other cultivators of New Moon Sect. Now that he discovered that the talent tree could even burn the soul-extinguishing divine lightning, he no longer had any misgivings. Light flashed on the 9 Imperial equipment. Under the support of the spirit inscriptions, whether it was speed or power, it was much stronger than before. Screams were heard again, and several figures fell from the sky with blood spurting out. The purple lightning that was about to disappear once again clung to Lu Ye's body and slithered around like a snake. Tanli, who was seriously injured, was still shouting angrily, "Lu Ye, you're courting death!" His junior brother's death pained him, but if Lu Ye continued to be so stubborn, he would not have a good ending. If he could kill Lu Ye here today, it would be worth it no matter how big the loss was. The premise was that Lu Ye could not escape. Thinking of this, Tanli shouted, "Don't let him escape. He won't be able to last long." Originally, Lu Yi had killed several people under the siege of so many cultivators, which had already made the cultivators of New Moon Sect wary. They only had one life, who would not cherish it. However, seeing the purple lightning on Lu Ye's body getting denser and denser, and with Tan Li's orders, the cultivators of New Moon Sect immediately mustered up their courage and continued to fight with Lu Yi. The flowing light of Imperial equipment crisscrossed, and the saber light slashed. Lu Ye's figure was like a graceful butterfly, fluttering in the crowd. Everywhere he passed, there would be a rain of blood. The figures of New Moon Sect cultivators fell down like dumplings. In such a fierce battle, it was difficult for Lu Yi to block all the attacks. However, he had the defensive spirit rune, so he was able to protect his vital points. The other attacks that landed on him would at most cause him some light injuries. At the same level of cultivation, Lu Ye's physique was comparable to a body cultivator who specialized in the cultivation of the physical body. However, if the cultivators of New Moon Sect were hit by Lu Ye's saber, it would not be a matter of injury, but a matter of life and death. Cultivators were constantly falling in battle. Lu Ye's entire body seemed to have turned into a purple lightning bolt, shuttling through the battlefield. Someone could not stand the pressure and could not help but shout, "Senior Brother Tan, we're no match for him." If someone had told them before today that there was a person in this world who could single-handedly fight all the cultivators in their encampment, they would not have believed it. However, at this moment, such an unbelievable thing was happening right under their noses. Moreover, that person was the famous sect exterminating Yi, and he was still killing people under the punishment of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Tan Li's eyes were bloodshot, seeing his own cultivators die one after another. His heart ached so much that he could not breathe. However, they had already paid such a huge price. If they gave up now, wouldn't those who died just now have died in vain? The purple lightning on Lu Ye's body was so dense that it could not be dispersed. He must be enduring unimaginable torture and pain. He can't hold on. We must hold him back. Tan Li roared. Lu Ye's endurance was beyond imagination. Tan Li originally thought that he could only kill a few people at most, but by now nearly 30 people had died in Lu Ye's hands. There were less than 200 cultivators in New Moon Sect's encampment. Just now, 10 to 20% of them had died. How heavy was the loss? If he did not hold Lu Ye back, he would not be able to answer to his sect. Since their sect's guardian had already spoken, no matter how frightened the cultivators of New Moon Sect were, they could only brace themselves and continue to attack Lu Ye. However, Lu Ye did not seem to be bothered by the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Instead, he became more and more courageous. Wherever the long saber in his hand pointed, a cultivator would be killed. Beside Tan Li, the medical cultivator who was treating his injuries, suddenly said, "Senior apprentice brother, I heard that on the Golden Light Summit, a true lake stage cultivator from the Jade Blood Sect forced her way into the Spirit Stream battlefield. Dozens of cultivators died in her hands." Tan Li suddenly turned his head, his eyes bloodshot. "What are you trying to say?" The medical cultivator said, I don't know how strong the soul-extinguishing divine thunder is, but it is said that even a spiritual C-stage cultivator cannot withstand the punishment of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Logically speaking, Louis Ye should be unable to move. However, although the soul-extinguishing divine thunder on his body is increasing, it does not seem to affect him much. Senior apprentice brother, does the Jade Blood sect have some special method to avoid the effects of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder? Impossible. Tan Li denied. This is the punishment of heaven's secrets. There is no way to avoid it. I mean, what if? Tan Li's expression became dazed. Yes, what if? It had been so long since Lu Ye killed his first person, and so many people had died at his hands. If he was really punished by the soul-extinguishing divine thunder, even if he did not die on the spot, he should be in so much pain that he would not be able to move. However, this guy seemed to be getting fiercer and fiercer as he fought. His expression was extremely calm, without the slightest hint of pain. Did the Jade Blood sect really have a way to avoid the punishment of heaven's secrets? If that was the case, then it was too inconceivable. Heaven's secrets had always been fair and just. So why was it so biased towards the Jade Blood sect? Senior apprentice brother, you can't use the lives of your fellow apprentices to test Lu Ye's condition, the medical cultivator said earnestly. Tan Li suddenly came back to his senses. Yes, those were his fellow apprentices. The reason why he let his own cultivators continue to besiege Lu Yi was not that he thought they could beat him in terms of strength, but because he felt that Lu Yi could not withstand the torture of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. However, if Lu Ye could really avoid the punishment of heaven's secrets, then no matter how many people died, it would be in vain. Thinking of this, Tan Li no longer hesitated. He suddenly stood up and shouted, "Return to the 9 regions!" The moment he finished speaking, he rushed straight towards Lu Yi. Following Tan Li's order, the cultivators of the New Moon sect, who had already sensed that something was wrong, rushed towards the Heaven's Secrets Hall. Lu Yi was about to chase after him, but Tan Li's burly figure had already rushed over, shouting, "Don't kill my fellow apprentices!" Spiritual power and qi and blood surged wildly, causing Tan Li's whole body to reveal an abnormal dark red color. His whole person was like a mad beast, ferocious and insufferably arrogant. Lu Yi stopped, raised his Panshan saber horizontally, and slashed 3 times in a row. 3 crescent-shaped saber lights slashed towards Tan Li, who crossed his arms in front of him to block. With 3 muffled thuds, deep wounds appeared on Tan Li's arms, so deep that his bones could be seen. His forward momentum was also stopped. When he looked up, he saw a figure wrapped in purple instantly appear in front of him. A bright saber light flashed in front of his eyes, and Tan Li's body froze in place. Lu Yi had already brushed past him, chasing after the cultivators of the New Moon sect, who were rushing towards the Heaven's Secrets Hall. Behind him, Tan Li's eyes were gloomy. His body fell from the sky, and before he hit the ground, his head had already been separated from his body. He was also a 9th heaven cultivator, but under such heavy injuries, he couldn't even take a single hit from Lu Yi. After a while, the battle ended. In the Heaven's Secrets Hall, Lu Yi shook off the bloodstains on his Panshan saber and returned it to its sheath. Many people of the New Moon sect had run away, but there was nothing he could do about it. If they didn't want to fight to the death with him, he wouldn't be able to keep everyone here by himself. However, it was still not bad. He turned around and walked out of the Heaven's Secrets Hall, arriving in front of Tan Li's headless corpse. He searched his chest for a while, then took out the Great Formation jade pendant. After refining it a little, he closed the defensive formation of the encampment. Only then did he send a message to Yi, asking her to bring Tao Jingyu over. Chapter 539. When Tao Jingyu followed Yi into New Moon sect's encampment, he saw a scene that he would never forget for the rest of his life. Tragic corpses were scattered all over the ground, and the ground was covered in blood. Following the blood and corpses, They arrived in front of New Moon Sect's Divine Secret Hall. A figure sat casually on the steps of Divine Secret Hall. His body was covered in blood, and a long saber was placed beside him. On the surface of the figure, purple lightning was slithering around like a snake. Just looking at the purple lightning gave Tao Jingyu an extremely uncomfortable feeling. It was hard to imagine what kind of torture one would suffer if they were surrounded by such purple lightning. Behind this figure, Divine Secret Hall was filled with the smell of blood. There were at least 10 or 20 corpses piled up inside. This was the core region, and every cultivator here was at least a 9th order cultivator. However, these cultivators, who were high and mighty in Tao Jingyu's eyes, were all lying in pools of blood, their corpse temperature gradually cooling. Along the way, he saw about 50 corpses. Looking at the figure sitting on the steps, Tao Jingyu suddenly felt like he was looking up at a tall mountain. At this moment, he clearly felt that this mountain in front of him was one that he would never be able to surpass in his life. This was his 5th senior brother. A few months ago, he was a master who suppressed the entire Myriad Demon Ridge with his own strength. On the day he broke through to the Cloud River realm, Myriad Demon Ridge celebrated with gongs and drums. However, who would have thought that in less than 3 months he would kill his way into the Spirit Stream battlefield and challenge an entire sect by himself? He stepped forward and bowed respectfully. 5th senior brother. Go in. Yes. Tao Jingyu knew the purpose of Lu Yi bringing him here. He immediately stepped into Divine Secret Hall and began to plunder the various blessings on New Moon Sect's Divine Secret Pillar with his identity as a guardian. This was the first time he had done such a thing after taking over as the guardian of Blue Blood Sect's encampment. However, it was not troublesome. After a little exploration, he knew how to do it. Yi placed the storage bags she collected along the way in front of Lu Yi and asked worriedly, "Lu Yi, are you okay?" The soul-extinguishing divine thunder targeted the soul, so it was extremely effective against a spirit body like Yi. Therefore, just looking at the purple lightning made Yi feel dizzy. "I'm fine," Lu Yi casually replied. The talent tree had been incinerating the soul-extinguishing divine lightning that had invaded his body, so he felt quite good. Although it was painful, it was still within the range of what he could endure. On the other hand, not only did his merit points not increase, they had decreased by nearly 2,000. From the looks of it, even if Tianji had suppressed his cultivation to the Heaven 9 boundary, the merit points would still be calculated based on his 3rd order Cloud River Realm cultivation. Killing enemies with a cultivation base several levels higher than that of a Spirit Stream stage cultivator naturally wouldn't earn any merit points. Instead, merit points would be deducted. It was a bit of a loss. Originally, Lu Yi came to New Moon Sect to make up for his losses. But now, not only did he not gain anything, he even lost more. Fortunately, he still had a lot of storage bags. Lu Yi popped a few spirit pills into his mouth, healing himself while opening the restrictions on the storage bags. A Spirit Stream Realm cultivator's storage pouch did not have many good things, even for a Heavenly 9 Realm cultivator like Tanley. One storage pouch after another was opened. About half an hour later, all the storage bags were opened. Sure enough, there wasn't anything that could make one's eyes light up. Tao Jingyu had already swept through all the blessings in New Moon Sect's encampment. At this moment, he looked quite excited. He came to Lu Yi and asked, "5th senior brother, where should we go next?" Lu Yi put some of the spirit pills and spirit stones in a storage bag and threw it to him. "Wait here." After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked into Tianji Hall. Arriving in front of Tianji Pillar, he pressed his hand on it and connected his mind to the Tianji treasury, selling the rest of the spoils. His merit points increased to more than 7,000. Then, without hesitation, he bought all the merit points for the Earth Core Fire and devoured it one by one. There was no other reason. The talent tree seemed to have run out of fuel and needed to be replenished quickly. Otherwise, The soul-extinguishing divine lightning that had invaded his body would not be able to be incinerated, and it would be inconvenient for his next move. Comparatively speaking, the consumption of the talent tree to burn the soul-extinguishing thunder was much greater than the consumption of the poison. He didn't know how much fuel the talent tree had accumulated. Every time he devoured the earth core fire, part of the energy was used to activate the spirit patterns on the talent tree, and the other part was stored as backup fuel. Since he started cultivating, the talent tree had only run out of fuel once, and that was during the Battle of Golden Light Summit. However, at that time, his cultivation was not high, and he didn't have much money. The amount of energy he could devour with the talent tree was not much, so it was natural that the fuel would run out. Ever since he started buying the earth core fire from the Tianji treasury, the talent tree had never run out of fuel. This was the second time the talent tree ran out of fuel. As the earth core fire devoured one after another, the talent tree burned a large amount of gray fog. However, the purple lightning surrounding him did not decrease at all. This time he had killed more than 50 people. The amount of soul-extinguishing thunder accumulated was too large, and it would probably consume a lot of the earth core fire. What surprised Lu Yi was that the talent tree's leaves did not react when he devoured the earth core fire this time. It seemed that the talent tree had also sensed that his situation was not good and had reacted accordingly. Now that he was being corroded by the soul-extinguishing thunder, all the earth core fire he had devoured had turned into fuel and did not provide energy to activate new spirit patterns on the talent tree. Soon, the earth core fire that he had exchanged for more than 7,000 merit points was completely devoured, and large amounts of gray fog continued to rise from the talent tree. After less than an hour, the talent tree stopped moving, and the fuel was used up again. However, the soul-extinguishing thunder on Lu Ye's body was still purple and showed no signs of weakening. What a loss! The corner of Lu Ye's eye twitched. He had originally wanted to come to New Moon Sect to make up for his losses, but in the end he had lost merit points by killing people, and burning the soul-extinguishing thunder also required merit points. In this way, not only did he not make up for his losses, but his losses became more and more severe. However, if he counted the blessings that Tao Jingyu had plundered, he would definitely have profited. However, Lu Yi was now at the Cloud River tier, and the matters in the encampment had nothing to do with him. No matter how many blessings Tao Jingyu plundered, the benefits would belong to the sect, and he would not be able to get a share. Lu Yi rummaged through his storage space again. After entering the Cloud River battlefield, he had obtained many spoils of war, but he had not dealt with them. He had originally planned to deal with them when he had the opportunity to go to the Tianji Business Alliance, but there was no need to think about this now. It was more important to deal with his own troubles first. Once again, he connected his mind to the Tianji treasure house and sold the many spoils of war that he had no use for. He kept the Origin spirit pills and spirit stones, which he could use for his own cultivation. He barely managed to gather more than 10,000 merit points, and continued to buy earth core fire to replenish the fuel for the talent tree. While he was busy, a piece of news in the 9 prefectures spread rapidly among the great sects of the Wanmo Ridge as if it had spread wings. After 3 months, the sect Extinguishing Yi had reappeared at the Spirit Stream battlefield, and this time he had directly come to New Moon Sect's encampment. With his own strength, he had slaughtered his way through the encampment of New Moon Sect. The encampment of New Moon Sect was lost, and more than 50 disciples were killed or injured. Even the guardian of New Moon Sect, Tan Li, was killed. When the news spread, all the great sects of the Wanmo Ridge were shaken. Countless people stomped their feet and cursed angrily. Lu Yi was inhumane. As a Cloud River tier cultivator, he actually did not cultivate in the Cloud River battlefield, and instead came to the Spirit Stream battlefield to show off, especially the entire New Moon Sect. They were all suppressing a bellyful of anger. The higher-ups of the True Lake and Spirit Sea tier wanted nothing more than to charge into the Spirit Stream battlefield and avenge their dead disciples. However, considering Lu Yi's unparalleled battle prowess in the spirit level, those true lake and spirit C-tier cultivators did not dare to really enter. It would be fine if they won, but if they lost, then they would become a laughingstock. But no matter what, the New Moon sect had suffered heavy losses this time. Their encampment had been destroyed, which meant that the blessings that they had accumulated over the years would definitely be plundered. Moreover, so many of their disciples had died, and such losses could not be compensated by recruiting new disciples. There had to be an explanation. Thinking back, when Lu Yi had gone to the great sects of the Wan Mo Ridge to extort money for safety, the New Moon sect had obediently cooperated. Since they had received the money several months ago, what right did they have to cause trouble again? This was going back on their word. The upper echelons of the New Moon sect immediately gathered the survivors and inquired about the ins and outs of the matter. Soon, they obtained some useful information. Lu Yi had mentioned Tan Sheng before, and said that Tan Sheng had taken good care of him on the Cloud River battlefield, so he had specially come to return the favor. Of course, this was sarcasm. They were in different camps. If Tan Sheng had really seen Lu Yi and found out his identity, he would have definitely killed him. Why would he have taken care of him? However, according to this information, the New Moon sect quickly realized that the root of the matter might be Tan Sheng. They immediately ordered people to enter the Cloud River battlefield to gather information. Soon there was news. Nearly a month ago, a hunting ground had appeared on the Cloud River battlefield, and Tan Sheng and Lu Yi were both there. In the end, Tan Sheng used a tracking disc to fight for the top spot in the hunt. He joined forces with many experts of the Wan Mo Ridge to surround Lu Yi and almost killed him. In the end, Lu Yi was forced to use a golden body token, and after the hunting ground closed, he invited a divine pillar. Only then did he escape. An extremely precious golden body medallion and a pillar of heavenly secrets worth 100,000 contribution points. The entire New Moon sect finally understood why Lu Yi had come to their base to cause trouble. He was obviously taking revenge. For a moment, the New Moon sect didn't know what to say. They could only blame Tan Sheng for not being thorough enough and not killing him, leaving behind a big problem. If the New Moon sect could gather information from the Cloud River battlefield, the other sects of the Wan Mo Ridge would naturally be able to as well. Therefore, even if the New Moon sect didn't announce it to the public, the news of the hunting ground quickly spread. Countless cultivators of the Wan Mo Ridge exclaimed, Lu Yi was really lucky to be able to obtain something like the golden body token. According to the information they had gathered, Lu Yi would have died 100 times over if he didn't have the golden body token. Based on how much time had passed, it seemed that Lu Yi had entered the Spirit Stream battlefield almost immediately after leaving the Cloud River battlefield. He really was a petty person who couldn't wait for revenge. Chapter 540. Compared to the fury of the New Moon sect, the other sects of the Wan Mo Ridge were more concerned about Lu Yi's current situation. As a cultivator at the Cloud River tier, forcefully entering the Spirit Stream battlefield and slaughtering everyone sounded very impressive and domineering. However, the punishment from the heavens was no laughing matter, especially since Lu Yi had killed more than 50 people this time. It was said that in the end, the purple lightning had almost solidified on his body, and his entire body was covered in snakes of lightning. The power of the soul, destroying divine lightning, was terrifying. Would Lu Yi die just like that? If so, then the New Moon sect had contributed greatly and the loss was acceptable. This scourge had caused chaos in the Spirit Stream battlefield when he was at the Spirit Stream realm, and the myriad demon ridge had been unable to do anything to him. When he had entered the Cloud River battlefield, he had been surrounded by so many experts with his weak cultivation, but he had still been able to escape. If such a talent was allowed to grow, it would be a disaster for the Wan Mo Ridge. But if he died to the soul-destroying divine lightning, that would be good news. Suddenly, countless messages were sent to the New Moon sect, asking them to send people to the Spirit Stream battlefield to check the situation and confirm whether Lu Yi was alive or not. The New Moon sect naturally rejected such a ridiculous request. They were all just a bunch of onlookers. They were not the ones who had their base destroyed, nor were they the ones who had their disciples killed. Now, the one who had lost was the New Moon sect. If Louis Ye was still alive and they sent people to the battlefield now, wouldn't they be sending sheep to the tiger's den? Moreover, Tan Xing was not the only one who had made things difficult for Louis Ye in the hunting ground. However, Tan Xing was the cause of the matter. The base was destroyed and the disciples were killed. The New Moon sect had to admit it. But with Louis Ye's crazy momentum, the New Moon sect would not be the only one he wanted to take revenge on. When the time came, all the sects behind the powerful cultivators who had participated in the attack would not be able to escape. When this news spread, many sects of the Wanmo Ridge panicked. They hurriedly sent people to the Cloud River battlefield to find out who had attacked Louis Ye that day, and if there were any cultivators from their sects, but the Cloud River battlefield was not as convenient as the Spirit Stream battlefield, so many things cannot be found clearly. Who knew how long it would take for the news to be confirmed? Moreover, Louis Ye was bound by the soul-destroying divine lightning. Even if he did not die, he should not have the energy to find trouble with other sections. Now that he thought about it, things might not be as bad as what the New Moon sect had made them out to be. However, they still needed to confirm Louis Ye's condition. They couldn't afford to be careless. Immediately, the forces in the Myriad Demons Ridge that were closer to the New Moon Gates base sent some people to the New Moon Gates base to investigate. Somewhere in the Cloud Stream battlefield, the azure-robed Tan Xing's eyes were blood-red, and 2 streams of tears flowed down his cheeks. He had just received news from his sect from the 9 states about what had happened at the Spirit Stream battlefield. Clenching his fists, Tan Xing swore in his heart that if he didn't kill Louis Ye, he wasn't human. From his point of view, it was not wrong for him to target Louis Ye in the hunting ground. His only mistake was that he did not kill him and let Louis Ye escape with his life. Even more unimaginable was the fact that Louis Ye had barged into the Spirit Stream battlefield to exact revenge. He had caused the deaths of his own junior brothers and sisters, and had even killed his own brother. If Tan Xing and Louis Ye were just enemies before, then this was a true blood feud. How could he not seek revenge for such hatred? Tan Xing was a Cloud River 9th Order cultivator and had obtained many benefits in the hunting ground. Originally, he had planned to break through to the True Lake realm within a month, but in the current situation, he could no longer consider breaking through. With such a deep blood feud before him, Tan Xing had to do everything in his power to kill Louis Ye and avenge his dead junior brothers and sisters. Spirit Stream battlefield, New Moon Gates base, on the steps in front of Heaven's secret hall. Louis Ye was sitting casually, the purple thunder around his body almost completely gone. At this moment, he was talking to some of his friends. He didn't know how the news got out, but many people in the Spirit Stream battlefield knew that he had returned and even destroyed New Moon Gates encampment. The Guardian envoys and Vice envoys all became excited and sent him messages asking if he needed help. Back then, he had led a group of Grand Heaven Alliance's allied forces in the inner circle of the battlefield, earning many sects a lot of money. However, after entering the core circle, such benefits were no longer available. Now that he had returned, it was obvious that many people were eager to take action. There were also people asking him about his situation, obviously worried that he had killed too many people and had been devoured by the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Louis Ye replied to them one by one. It took quite a while for everything to end. There were people from Grand Heaven Alliance who were worried about his situation, but those from Myriad Demon Ridge should be even more concerned. He just didn't know what their reaction would be after they confirmed that he was safe and sound. Speaking of which, from a personal point of view, breaking into New Moon Gates base today was a huge loss. He had to pay close to 20,000 merit points in total, but from a sect's point of view, it was obviously a profit. Without mentioning anything else, Tao Zhengyu's plundering alone was worth more than 20,000 merit points. Of course, the most important thing was to vent the anger in his heart. He stood up with his long saber and called out to Tao Jingyu, who was waiting beside him, "Let's go to the next one!" There were so many masters who besieged him in the hunting ground that day, but he didn't know which sect most of them were from. He only knew that Tan Sheng was from New Moon Gate and Wei Kei was from Cloud Sun sect. Tan Sheng was the source of the incident, so Lu Yi went to New Moon Gate first. Wei Kei was the one who jumped around the most and shouted the most fiercely, so he was placed in the second sect. However, he couldn't kill that many people. He had no more spoils to sell, and there wasn't much fuel left in his talent tree. But Lu Yi believed that Cloud Sun sect would make a wise choice after learning from New Moon Gate's mistake. As for the sects that the others were from, regardless of which sect they were from, every sect in the core circle of Myriad Demon Ridge could be counted as one. They wouldn't be able to escape. Of course, Lu Yi wouldn't use such methods against those sects. Things like safety money could be collected a second time after the first time. He believed that Myriad Demon Ridge would be familiar with it after the first time. Who dared to not give it to them? New Moon Gate was a good example. As for destroying all the Myriad Demon Ridge bases, Lu Yi didn't do such a thing when he was at Sky 9 Realm. Naturally, he couldn't do it now. Once their bases were destroyed, those cultivators would become homeless. If it was just one or two sects, it wouldn't affect the overall situation. But if all the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators in the core circle were like that, then things would get out of hand. Without any worries, only God knew what they would do. The biggest possibility was that they would gather in one place and destroy Grand Heaven Alliance's bases one by one. Therefore, although Lu Yi had the means to do such a thing, he couldn't do it. Otherwise, it would only cause endless trouble for Grand Heaven Alliance. Everything had a trade-off. The situation at the Spirit Stream battlefield had been maintained for so many years. Rashly breaking it might not only bring benefits. Compared to a temporary victory, Lu Yi was more willing to gain some practical benefits. He took out a map and unexpectedly found that Cloud Sun sect's base wasn't too far away from New Moon Gate. With his speed, he could reach it in less than half a day. He took off on his magic tool. Not long after, a few streams of light suddenly appeared in front of him. He didn't know which camp they were from. They obviously noticed him, but they still flew in his direction. Obviously, they didn't take Lu Yi seriously because they had more people. More than 10 miles away, the few people were flying as they talked. One of them said, "Senior Brother Meow, that person can't be Lu Yi, right? I think he's coming from New Moon Gate's base." The Chenjiu cultivator, who was addressed as Senior Brother Meow, said, "Don't think too much. Lu Yi forced his way into the Spirit Stream battlefield and killed so many people. Even if he's not dead, he should be surrounded by purple lightning. This person's body is clear, and there's no sign of purple lightning on him. How can he be Lu Yi? He should be a passerby." "That's true." The person nodded. Senior Brother Meow ordered in a deep voice, "We're almost at New Moon Gate's base. Everyone be alert. That Lu Yi kills people like flies. He's a great enemy of Wanma Ridge. Don't let him find you. Remember, our mission is only to investigate his situation. We're not going to fight him. If you encounter any danger, run. There's no shame." "Yes," the few of them answered. They had received orders from their sect to come to New Moon Gate's base to investigate Lu Yi's situation, but they didn't expect Lu Yi to fly in their direction. They were a little far away, so they couldn't see Lu Yi's face clearly. It wasn't until they were less than 3 miles away that Senior Brother Meow frowned and looked at Lu Yi. They didn't change direction because they had more people, but the other party didn't seem to have any intention of changing direction either. This was strange. For cultivators to encounter each other in the wild, no one knew which faction the other party belonged to. If they really bumped into each other, it was very likely that it would cause some trouble. Generally speaking, the weaker side would change direction to avoid direct contact with the cultivators of unknown origins. Senior Brother Meow didn't know why the other party was so fearless. Senior Brother Meow looked up and focused his vision. His body immediately stiffened. He thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. When he looked carefully, he found that he was right. The person in front of him was the target he came to investigate. He immediately cried out in surprise, "Impossible!" Just as he said before, that Liu Ye had killed so many people. Even if he didn't die, he would definitely be entangled by the purple lightning. Therefore, he didn't expect that the person flying towards them was actually Liu Ye. Looking at Liu Ye now, there wasn't any purple lightning entangling him. Heaven's secret didn't seem to punish him at all. It would be fine if it was just a simple appearance, but the key point was that there was a snow-white little beast sitting on his shoulder. If it wasn't Liu Ye, who else could it be? Moreover, the other party was obviously coming from New Moon Gate's base. They were only 2 miles away. Chapter 541. Run. Senior brother Miao's mind spun rapidly as he yelled. The few junior brothers and sisters were confused. The one who spoke before asked Senior brother Miao, "That's Liu Ye, run." As Senior brother Miao spoke, he took out his spirit artifact and got into a defensive posture. Clearly, he wanted to stay and buy time for his junior brothers and sisters to escape. One had to admit that, as a senior brother, he was quite responsible. Their faces changed greatly when they heard this, and they were at a loss for what to do. A person's name was like a tree's shadow. In the Cloud River battlefield, Liu Ye was unknown, but in the Spirit Stream battlefield, it was not an exaggeration to say that everyone knew him, especially after what he had just done in New Moon Gate's encampment. He had single-handedly breached the encampment of a core circle sect and killed over 50 people in a row. Such a shocking achievement would have a huge impact on anyone. No one would have thought that they would run into this god of plague on this trip to the New Moon Sect's base. After a moment of hesitation, it was too late to escape. Liu Ye's figure was already a few hundred meters away. "Act according to my eyes," Senior brother Miao yelled and secretly urged his spirit power. The others also acted as if they were facing a great enemy. They quickly took out their spirit artifacts and stood behind Senior brother Miao, looking like they were going to advance and retreat with him. After a short while, Liu Ye was less than 100 meters away from them and went straight ahead. Senior brother Miao and his group froze in midair. Their expressions were solemn, and beads of sweat slid down their faces. Only when Liu Ye left did they start to breathe heavily. In that instant, they thought they were dead for sure, but they did not expect Liu Ye to leave just like that. Did he not see them? Of course not. They were less than 100 meters away, and Liu Ye was not blind. How could he not see them? Since it was not that he did not see them, it was that he simply ignored them. The others were still fine. They escaped from death and rejoiced. Only Senior brother Miao was rejoicing and ashamed. He was rejoicing that Liu Ye did not attack them. Otherwise, they would have died. He was ashamed that he actually felt lucky Liu Ye was currently in the 9th stage of heaven, and so was Meng Hao. Although Meng Hao had the courage to fight Liu Ye, he wasn't confident in being able to defeat him. After all, Liu Ye was in the top 50 of the Spirit Stream list. Senior brother Miao, a junior sister's voice trembled. "He's back." Senior brother Miao abruptly turned his head, and sure enough he saw Liu Yi, who should have left, turn around and fly back. Were they still going to make a move? Senior apprentice, brother Miao, made up his mind. Even if he died here today, he would let this sect exterminator Yi know that the cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge were not easy to bully. The flying spirit artifact stopped less than 1,000 feet away from them. This distance was enough for the cultivators of Tianjiu to attack. Myriad Devil Ridge? Liu Yi asked. Senior apprentice brother Miao was so nervous that he almost used his imperial equipment to attack. When he came to his senses, he nodded with a serious expression. The person standing in front of him did not seem to be a cultivator of the same level, but a true lake spirit sea stage expert. He felt even more ashamed. Facing Liu Ye, he realized that he didn't have the determination that he had imagined. He didn't even have the courage to refuse to answer. "From the looks of it, you should know who I am." Then I won't talk nonsense. Don't be nervous. I don't have any killing intent today, so I won't do anything to you. The main reason was that killing people was too much of a loss. In the past, killing people in the Spirit Stream battlefield would earn him merit points. Now, not only would his merit points be deducted, he would also have to spend merit points to buy the Earth Core fire to burn the soul, extinguishing divine thunder. Senior Apprentice Brother Meow and the others' eyes twitched. They had just broken into the New Moon Sect's encampment and killed more than 50 people. How could this not have any killing intent? What do you want? Senior Apprentice Brother Meow braced himself and asked, "Go back and pass a message to your sections. Tell them the same old rules. In 10 days, come to the Heavenly Sword Peak. If I don't see what I want in 10 days, I will visit every sect." Then Lu Yi turned and left, leaving behind Senior Apprentice Brother Meow and the others with uncertain expressions. After Lu Ye's figure disappeared, someone asked, "Senior Apprentice Brother Meow, what did he mean?" Senior Apprentice Brother Meow didn't answer. He naturally knew what Lu Ye meant. After all, this kind of thing had only happened once in a few months. At that time, the core sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge weren't prepared to cooperate. After all, who would be willing to give away so many resources for no reason? And to the enemy? But after Lu Ye's battle with an Overlord-level demonic beast, he became an Overlord-level existence as a spirit stream realm cultivator. Those sects that weren't prepared to cooperate obediently. Their fists weren't as big as others, and they had learned from their mistakes. So what else could they do if they didn't cooperate? Compared to the resources they had to give, the losses of their encampments were unimaginable. "Let's go!" Senior Apprentice Brother Meow called out and hurried back to his encampment. He had to spread the news as soon as possible. As for the rest, it wasn't something a spirit stream realm cultivator could think about. The sect's experts would weigh the consequences. Half an hour later, Lu Ye's request was reported by Senior Apprentice Brother Meow, and then quickly spread to the first, second, and third rank sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge. After hearing the news, the first thing the sects paid attention to was not Lu Ye's rude request, but Lu Ye's current state. According to the observation of Senior Apprentice Brother Meow and the others, Lu Ye didn't have the slightest trace of purple lightning on his body. He was clearly in a normal state. This puzzled the countless experts of the Myriad Devil Ridge. More than 50 disciples of the New Moon Sect had died at Lu Ye's hands. Those cultivators who escaped from the encampment saw with their own eyes that this guy was surrounded by purple lightning. How long had it been? How could the soul-extinguishing divine thunder that even Spirit Sea Realm cultivators feared disappear? It wasn't until Senior Apprentice Brother Meow and the others swore an oath that this news was conclusively confirmed. The Myriad Devil Ridge couldn't help but be in a daze. They were expecting Lu Ye to be unable to bear the torture of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Even if he didn't die, he wouldn't be able to stir up trouble again. But now, it seemed that he had used some unknown method to suppress or even eliminate the soul-extinguishing divine thunder that wrapped around his body. The Myriad Devil Ridge's side was more inclined to the former possibility. After all, to be able to eliminate the punishment of Heaven's secret, this method was a bit unimaginable. They also remembered the woman named Wei Yang from the Jade Blood Sect. She had broken into the Spirit Stream battlefield twice and killed many Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. After being punished by Heaven's secret, she was still safe and sound. Did the Jade Blood Sect really have some special method to suppress the punishment of Heaven's secret? If so, then things would be troublesome. In the face of sect extinguishing Yi, they couldn't beat him, nor could they defend against him. There seemed to be no other choice but to obediently cooperate with him and quell his anger. Most of the Myriad Devil Ridge's sects were indignant because none of their own cultivators had made things difficult for Lu Ye in the hunting ground. As a result, they had also suffered an unexpected calamity. Lu Ye obviously didn't know who had made things difficult for him in the hunting ground, so he directly caught them all in one fell swoop. How could they be willing to accept this? A few months ago, they had already sent Lu Iya some money, which was a shame that the myriad devil ridge couldn't wash away. A few months later, this kind of shame would happen again? What was the difference between this and rubbing salt on the wound? Most importantly, Lu Iya was from the Jade Blood Sect, and the Jade Blood Sect was from the Grand Heaven Alliance. The money sent by so many first, second, and third grade sects was a huge amount of resources. This was enough to support the enemy. Last time, the Jade Blood Sect had received a sum of money. Such a huge amount of wealth was enough for the Jade Blood Sect to not have to worry about the consumption of their disciples' cultivation for the next few decades. It was said that the Jade Blood Sect's disciples' monthly salary was comparable to that of the top first-grade sects in the 9 regions. It could be said that they were rich and imposing. Even the treatment of some nominal disciples was better than that of many large sections. For a 9th-grade sect's disciples to have such rich treatment, it was the blood of the various large sects in the myriad Devil Ridge. If this happened again, who knew what kind of development the Jade Blood Sect would have in the future? Fortunately, Lu Iya had given them 10 days, the same as last time, so there was still room for discussion in the myriad Devil Ridge. Whether to compromise or not was a big problem. For a time, many divine Sea Realm cultivators from different sects gathered together to discuss this matter. Soon, someone raised a key question. That was why Lu Iya didn't kill Senior Brother Meow and the others. If he simply wanted someone to deliver a message, it would be enough to leave one person alive. It could even be said that Lu Iya could go to any of the myriad Devil Ridge stations and deliver the message personally. Senior Brother Meow and the others were all safe and sound. Lu Iya didn't even have the intention to attack them from the beginning to the end. This was very thought-provoking. With his powerful means in the New Moon Sect Station, Senior Brother Meow and the others couldn't have escaped from him. Although Lu Iya said that he didn't have any murderous intent and let them go, if one looked at it carefully, this statement was indeed full of flaws. Lu Iya must have some scruples, so he didn't attack Senior Brother Meow and the others. This discovery made the eyes of many divine Sea Realm cultivators light up. Someone said slowly, "Now we are speculating that the Jade Blood Sect has some special means to suppress the divine punishment. But what if this means has some drawbacks?" "Senior Chin, what do you mean?" someone asked. Senior Chin stroked his beard and said, "I have lived for so many years and have never heard of anyone who can compete with the divine punishment. Suppressing the divine punishment sounds funny, but the truth is right in front of us. I will believe it this time. However, such a method is so heaven-defying that it must have a great price to pay. It is very likely that Lu Iya doesn't want to kill, but that he can't kill anymore." Hearing this, many divine Sea Realm cultivators' eyes lit up. Immediately, someone nodded and said, "Senior Chin is right. Maybe if Lu Iya kills again, the suppressed divine punishment will erupt even more fiercely. If so, doesn't that mean he is bluffing? Do you remember when he was in the Heaven 9 realm, he broke through nearly 30 sects in the core circle? That's why we had no choice but to compromise. But now, half a day has passed. If he can break through another station, why wouldn't he put pressure on us?" Chapter 542. In the main hall, as the divine Sea Realm cultivator spoke, the situation seemed to become clearer. No matter what method Lu Iya used to suppress Tianji's punishment, he must have paid a huge price. Moreover, at this moment, it was very likely that he could no longer kill. If that was the case, then why should the myriad Demon Ridge be afraid of him? Although he had the ability to sneak into other people's bases, under the restriction of not being able to kill, his threat to the myriad Demon Ridge was almost negligible. Of course, this was just a guess. Without concrete evidence, it could not be confirmed. "It's simple to verify," someone said. "First, find out where Lu Iya is, then find some Tian Geo cultivators to test him. Then, we'll know if he can kill again." "That makes sense. Let's do that. Does anyone have any objections?" "I agree." "No objections. I have a suggestion. Try to find Tianjiu, who is on the spirit stream list. He is too weak to verify anything. Also, if possible, maybe we can take the opportunity to eliminate him. Okay, then it's settled. My Bai West sect can send one person. Bay Pavilion can send one. Flying Thunder sect can send one. A group of divine sea realm cultivators spoke one after another. Soon, a team of 20 or 30 people was decided. All of them were on the spirit stream list, and many of them were ranked in the top 20. Sitting at the head of the table, a divine sea realm cultivator who had not spoken until now said, "Then please send the message to the spirit stream battlefield and let the little guy move out." Everyone accepted the order and immediately began to send the message. However, at this moment, there seemed to be some information coming from outside. Many divine sea realm cultivators began to investigate one after another. After a while, their expressions became serious. Even the divine sea realm cultivator who had spoken just now frowned. He raised his hand and said, "What we were discussing just now, stop for now." He raised his turbid eyes and glanced around the hall. He slowly said, "We received news that the Cloud Sun Sect's base was breached by Louis a half an hour ago. More than a dozen people died." As soon as he said that, the entire main hall quieted down. These warriors of the spirit sea realm were still discussing how to prove their speculation. But now, it seemed that there was no need to do so. Liu Ye had already killed his way to the Yunyang sect and killed more than a dozen warriors of the Yunyang sect. Naturally, their speculation was not valid. A powerful warrior at the spirit sea realm was enraged. He gritted his teeth and shouted in a low voice, "Bastard!" This person was a warrior in the spirit sea realm from the Yunyang sect. He happened to be here. He had also received a message from his own sect and knew what had happened at the spirit stream battlefield. Although compared to New Moon sect, their casualties were much lower, but that was because they had learned from New Moon sect's example. The Cloudy Sun sect's cultivators were more decisive in retreating. Otherwise, based on Liu Ye's methods, he would have killed a river of blood and mountains of corpses. "Does anyone have a map of the spirit stream battlefield?" the old man asked. He had never imagined that, as a divine sea cultivator, he would be personally involved in the spirit stream battlefield. However, the spirit stream realm was the foundation of every sect, and the matter had already reached the point where he had to intervene. "I do." As the voice spoke, a map of the spirit stream battlefield was taken out. The divine sea realm cultivator poured his spiritual power into it, and someone else raised his hand to construct a strange spiritual pattern. The spiritual pattern and the map were linked together. In the next moment, a huge diagram appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The diagram was none other than the map of the spirit stream battlefield. New Moon sect's encampment isn't close to the Cloudy Sun sect's encampment, but it isn't far either. The old man at the head looked at the map and continued, "With Liu Ye's strength, he should only need half a day to arrive. However, there are other sects in between the two encampments. Why did Liu Ye not invade those other sects' encampments, but attack the Cloudy Sun sects?" Judging from Liu Ye's route, he was specifically targeting the Cloudy Sun sect's encampment. "Brother Fu, what's the reason behind this?" The divine sea realm cultivator from the Cloudy Sun sect, the one surnamed Fu, had an ugly expression on his face as he said, "We've received news that a disciple from our sect, Wei Kei, was among those who attacked Liu Ye in the spirit stream battlefield. This should be the reason why Liu Ye came looking for us." As soon as he said that, the expressions of many divine sea realm cultivators turned ugly. First, it was Tan Sheng's New Moon sect, followed by Wei Kei's Cloudy Sun sect. Liu Ye was clearly targeting them. However, these two people weren't the only ones who had attacked Liu Ye in the spirit stream battlefield. Many of their sects had also participated in the attack. Didn't this mean that Liu Ye would also run to their own encampments? There were still some people who weren't sure about this, as they didn't know if any of their disciples had participated in the spirit stream battlefield. This was a huge crisis. They all sent out messages telling the disciples of the spirit stream battlefield to be on guard. Once they discovered any traces of Lu Iya, they were to immediately retreat back to the 9 prefectures. Now that their encampments had been destroyed, the support from the heavenly fate pillar would definitely be lost. The only thing they could protect now was the lives of their own disciples. Brother Fu, did heavenly fate punish Lu Iya after he killed someone? The cultivator, surnamed Fu, said, "Let me ask." He sent a message back to his sect to inquire about the situation and soon received a reply. Yes, ever since he killed the first person, he has been surrounded by purple lightning. In the large hall, there were close to 100 divine sea realm cultivators, and all of them fell silent. They couldn't understand the situation on Lu Iya's side. Originally, they had guessed that he had some special method to suppress the punishment from heavenly fate. However, from the information they had obtained, it seemed that something was wrong. If he really had some method to suppress it, there was no reason for him to be surrounded by purple lightning. However, if he hadn't been suppressed, how could Lu Iya be safe and sound? After a long while, the old man sitting at the head of the table said, "A few months ago, our myriad demon ridge had already compromised once. It has only been a few months. Yet, Lu Iya has actually made such a rude request again. We can't allow this evil trend to grow. Otherwise, if he comes every few months in the future, could it be that we have to compromise every time?" Everyone fell silent. Thinking about it carefully, although Lu Iya was a little despicable, he was still a reasonable person. After receiving the safety money last time, he didn't make things difficult for the myriad Devil Ridges sections. Not long after, he reached the Cloud River realm and left the Spirit Stream battlefield. This time there was a reason for this. If he hadn't been targeted in the hunting ground, he wouldn't have come to the Spirit Stream battlefield. Of course, that was what they thought, but they wouldn't say it out loud. "What do you think, Old Chin?" someone asked. "Find some people to enter the Spirit Stream battlefield and explain the situation to him. I don't think this kid is a brainless person. I think he knows what the consequences are if he is too reckless." Then, Old Chin explained his plan. After hearing it, the Divine Sea Realm cultivators nodded in agreement. In any case, Lu Iya had given them a deadline of 10 days, so no matter what the result was, it was better to talk to him first. Although there wasn't much hope, what if they reached an agreement? Even if they couldn't reach an agreement, they still had 10 days to prepare. They couldn't just give him whatever he wanted. How would the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators behave in the future? Wouldn't they care about their reputation? While the Divine Sea Realm cultivators were discussing, in the Cloudy Sun Sect's encampment, Lu Yi was immersed in checking the situation of his talent tree. A large amount of gray mist was burning on the tree, indicating that there was still enough fuel. The main reason was that he didn't kill too many people this time. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he didn't kill enough. After realizing that Lu Yi had killed his way into the encampment, the Cloudy Sun Sect's cultivators quickly began to evacuate. In a short time, all of them had fled. It also saved Lu Yi some trouble. The only thing that made him feel helpless was his merit points. He had already spent all his merit points to buy the Earth Core fire to fuel his talent tree. In the end, after this round of killing, the contribution points displayed in his battlefield imprint had changed to owed 435 contribution points. This was the first time Lu Yi knew that merit points could be owed. It was an eye-opener. From the looks of it, Tianji would never make a losing deal. Lu Yi was convinced. Fortunately, he still had some spoils of war. After picking and choosing, he threw them all into Tianji's treasure house. Only then did he pay off the merit points he owed. Lu Yi didn't know what the consequences of owing Tianji merit points would be, because no one had ever done this before. After all, who would owe merit points? However, during the short time he owed Tianji merit points, he had a feeling of uneasiness, as if something bad would happen to him at any time. From the looks of it, Owing Tianji merit points was very likely to affect one's luck and make everything go wrong. Someone with such amazing luck like him had such a feeling after owing Tianji merit points. One could imagine what would happen to ordinary people if they owed Tianji merit points. They might even fall down while walking and choke on water. As the talon tree continued to burn, the purple lightning lingering on the surface of his body slowly dissipated. Tao Zhengyu walked out of Tianji Hall and said excitedly, "Fifth senior brother, where are we going next?" He was also addicted to the taste. Following his fifth senior brother, there was no danger at all, and he could even plunder the blessings of other sects, especially those from the core circle. Although the blessings he plundered had to be converted into merit points when he returned to the sect's encampment, as the current guardian of Blue Blood sect's encampment, he could still give himself some preferential treatment and receive a monthly salary. Not to mention anything else, he wouldn't have to worry about merit points to buy heaven-grade secret arts in the future. This could also be considered his travel expenses for following Lu Yi on this business trip, and he believed that his second senior sister would also allow it. Looking at the previous guardian of Blue Blood sect, only he and his fifth senior brother had plundered the blessings of enemy encampments. The others had never had this opportunity. He was extremely proud to be able to enter Blue Blood sect. Thinking back, he was just a loose cultivator, alone and helpless. He couldn't even guarantee his own cultivation resources. However, after joining Blue Blood sect, his life became better and better. Now, the monthly salary he received from the sect was comparable to the treatment of a first-grade sect's disciple. Just this alone was enough to make 90% of the Spirit Stream Realm cultivators in the 9 provinces envious. Chapter 543. The Blue Blood sect had formed an alliance with countless sects in the inner and core circles. After their disciples reached a certain level of cultivation, they could freely choose where they wanted to go to. Recently, many Blue Blood sect disciples had left their station and entered the inner circle. Some chose to attach themselves to other sects, while others, like Qinyu, entered the inner circle alone. It was their freedom to choose, and no one was forced to do so. The Union sects also sent their disciples to the Blue Blood sect to gain experience and cultivate, increasing the strength of the Blue Blood sect. A few days ago, an insect tide appeared, but the Blue Blood sect only treated the insect nest as a treasure trove to earn merit points. They exhausted the life cores in the insect nest to end the battle. In the entire outer circle, the Blue Blood sect station was worthy of being called a giant. With the Blue Blood sect station as the origin point, the Myriad Demon Ridge, cultivators didn't dare to set foot in a 1,000-kilometer radius. It was said that several Myriad Demon Ridge forces near the Blue Blood sect station had recently intended to relocate. There was no other way. If they couldn't survive, what else could they do but relocate? There's no next one. Hearing Tao Zhengyu's question, Lu Yi stood up and stretched. He also wanted to go to the next one, but there were some things he couldn't do. This time, no matter what, he was bullying the weak. It was a little different from when he was in the 9 Heavens realm. Of course, the most important thing was that he didn't know where the Cloud River Ninth Order cultivators who besieged him in the hunting ground came from. Otherwise, he could have fought them openly. He only knew where Tan Sheng and Wei Kei came from because of Li Baxian and Xia Qianqian. There was also a guy who used a saber. People called him Xia Liang, and he seemed to be from the Wild Saber sect. His saber cultivation experience seemed to have been settled. "Oh," Tao Zhengyu responded obediently. Although he was a little disappointed, he didn't insist on anything. The harvest this time was rich enough. Send junior brother Tao back to the station. "Be careful," Lu Yi instructed. "Got it. Be careful." Yi responded and summoned a flight-type spirit artifact. She also had her own flight-type spirit artifact, but she usually followed Lu Yi and didn't have a chance to use it. A moment later, Yi and Tao Zhengyu flew off on their flying tools and flew towards the Blue Blood sect station. The strength she and Hoopa could display now was at the level of Tianjiu, so they wouldn't encounter any danger in the spirit stream battlefield. This was especially true now that the various great sects of Myriad Demon Ridge were on high alert for Lu Ye's arrival, so no master would wander around. But with their strength, even if they really ran into 1 or 2 Heavenly Nine, they could also handle it. Therefore, Lu Yi wasn't worried about Yi and Hoopo's safety at all. Lu Yi quickly summoned his own air transportation spiritual artifact and stepped onto it. Then he leisurely flew toward a certain direction. He wanted to go to the sky Sword Peak and wait for the Myriad Devil Ridge to send something over. After being busy for so long, it was time to reap the rewards. The agreed time was 10 days, so he wasn't in a hurry. He walked around and looked around, carefree and unfettered. On his side, he was free and unfettered, but many cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge had to suffer. Almost every Myriad Devil Ridge station had received a message from the main sect, telling them to be on guard against Lu Yi. If they found any traces of Lu Yi, they were to immediately retreat to the 9 states. This caused almost all the cultivators in the Myriad Devil Ridge's core station to be on high alert, afraid that the sect exterminating leaf would suddenly come to kill them. This was especially so for the few sects that were closer to the Cloudy Sun sect station. But after waiting for a long time, no one saw any trace of the sect exterminating leaf. After he broke through the Cloudy Sun sect station, he disappeared. 2 days later, Lu Yi arrived at the Sky Sword Peak. A few months ago, he came here once, waiting to receive the safety money from the Myriad Devil Ridge. He originally thought that after leaving the Spirit Stream battlefield, he would never set foot here again. He didn't expect that there would be a day when he would come here again and do the same thing as a few months ago. The affairs of the world were truly unpredictable. Landing on the Sky Sword Peak, he casually found a flat rock and sat down cross-legged with a mountain plate saber beside him. Looking at the rolling sea of clouds in front of him, Lu Yi suddenly regretted giving the Myriad Devil Ridge such a long time limit. Being in the Spirit Stream battlefield, he couldn't cultivate because his cultivation had already surpassed the Spirit Stream realm. So, even if he breathed in the spirit chi of heaven and earth or swallowed spirit pills, it was useless. Helpless, he could only look for the books that he had taken from Madame Yun and study them. He had read these books more than once, but every time he read them again, he would gain something new. He also learned some interesting spirit runes from the books. However, because these spirit runes weren't on the Talon Tree, it would take a lot of practice to construct these spirit runes, and there was even a risk of failure. So far, among the spirit runes that Lu Yi had learned from the books, the most useful one for him was undoubtedly the Void Spirit Rune. If it weren't for the Void Spirit Rune, he wouldn't have been able to escape death so many times in the hunting ground, and he wouldn't have been able to hold on for so long under the pursuit of so many experts. This Spirit Rune was a very promising Spirit Rune. Lu Yi had always had a thought that there must be a Void Spirit Rune on the Talon Tree, but he had never been able to activate it, let alone know which leaves it was on. If he could activate the Void Spirit Rune on the Talon Tree, it would be much more convenient for him to set up a teleportation array in the future. If that was the case, he only needed to set up a mother array. As long as he was in the range of the teleportation array, he could activate the Void Spirit Rune to return to the mother array at any time. There was no need to bother setting up a child array at all. A simple Void Spirit Rune had the effect of teleportation. The purpose of setting up a formation with it as the core was to make the Spirit Rune stronger and more stable, without the restriction of the formation's framework, and without someone to maintain it, the Spirit Rune would be easily destroyed. He could even construct the Void Spirit Rune on his Imperial equipment and use it to develop some new killing methods. Of course, these were all ideas he came up with in his free time. If he wanted to do this, he would have to burn the Void Spirit Rune leaves on the Talon Tree. While he was reading on the Heavenly Sword Peak, 2 figures flew out on their artifacts from a certain sect's encampment in the core circle. They were a man and a woman. The man looked to be in his 30s or 40s. He had a dignified appearance and a stalwart figure. At first glance, one could tell that he was a person of high status. The woman was beautiful. From her appearance alone, it was impossible to tell her age. It was not a problem to say that she was 16 or 17, but it was also not a problem to say that she was 24 or 25. She was tall and slender, but what was rare was that her figure was extremely voluptuous. These two were both Ninth Order True Lake Realm Masters. They had never thought that they would have the opportunity to enter the Spirit Stream battlefield in this life and shoulder the mission of negotiating with a little Cloud River Realm brat. Previously, the Spirit Sea Realm Masters had discussed this matter and finally chose these two to come. The main reason was that this matter was neither big nor small, so it was not appropriate for a Spirit Sea Realm Master to come personally. If the negotiations fell through, it would be difficult to resolve the situation, and if a fight broke out, there would be no way to end it. Of course, the most important thing was that Lu Yi had the strength of an overlord. Those Spirit Sea Realm Masters really did not have the confidence to defeat him. It would be fine if they won, but what if they lost? They were all Spirit Sea Realm cultivators. If they were pressed to the ground and taught a lesson by a 17 or 18-year-old boy, what kind of scandal would that be? Therefore, after much discussion, it was more appropriate to have a true Lake Realm Master come. Firstly, it would show sincerity, and secondly, a true Lake Realm cultivator would be able to grasp the propriety of the negotiation. The original candidates were two men, but at the last moment, a Spirit Sea Realm Master spoke up and let the woman replace one of them. The basket-like flying spirit artifact was very beautiful. Together with the woman's beautiful face and voluptuous figure, it was enough to attract the attention of 99% of the men in the world. Yun Qinyu stood on the flower basket and looked up at the clouds in the sky, feeling a little annoyed. It was not only the gazes that swept over her from time to time, but also the advice of the Spirit Sea Realm Senior before she left. She did not know where the Spirit Sea Realm Senior got the news, but it was said that the sect exterminating leaf did not have any other preferences except for big and round girls. Therefore, she was the original candidate for the negotiation, in hopes that she would perform well. Firstly, her figure was outstanding, which was very much in line with the sect exterminating leaf's preferences. Secondly, her age could not be seen from her appearance, so it was easy for people to mistake her for a teenage girl, which would make Lu Yi less wary. Wasn't it normal for a 17 or 18-year-old, hot-blooded young man to lust after beautiful women? There were so many female cultivators in the Wan Mo Ridge, so why did he choose her? But since a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator had spoken, how could she refuse? She could only brace herself and go, hoping that she would not suffer too much humiliation. She knew that she would not be able to defeat a Spirit Stream Realm overlord. As for the rumor that the sect exterminating leaf liked big and round girls, it was said that there was proof of this. He had once challenged the Spirit Stream list, and almost all of his opponents, regardless of gender, had died. Only a girl named Bailan had survived, and that Bailan was big and round. He even killed female cultivators, which meant that Lu Yi was not a person who had tender feelings for the fairer sex. But he had let Bailan go, which was naturally thought-provoking. Junior Sister Yin, there is no need to be so anxious. That little brat gave a deadline of 10 days, and only 2 days have passed. With our speed, 1 day is enough to reach the Heavenly Sword Peak. Wu Jun, who was following behind Yun Qinyu, said, they did not belong to the same sect, but they had interacted with each other when they were young. Speaking of which, he had also been tempted by this junior sister Yun in the past. After all, in their era, Yun Qinyu was a heavenly girl who made all the young men in the Wan Mo Ridge crazy and infatuated. Very few people were not tempted by her appearance. Unfortunately, he was unknown back then and could only watch from afar. Now he was also a true Lake Realm Ninth Order cultivator and had hopes of reaching the Spirit Sea Realm in the future. He was no longer as immature and humble as he was when he was young and had a calmer temperament. Although he still felt that this heavenly girl was pleasing to the eye, he would not think too much about her. However, it was rare to be able to travel together with the heavenly girl of his dreams, so it was more or less a joyful thing. Therefore, he was not in a hurry, and even wished to walk slowly. Chapter 544. Yun Qingyue said, "Although there are still 10 days left, the negotiations have not reached a conclusion. We have to leave enough time for the sects to prepare, so we have to hurry." Saying so, not only did she not slow down, she even sped up. Seeing this, Wu Jun could only helplessly keep up. As they sped along, the heavenly sword peak came into view. Wu Jun suddenly said, "Actually, we can try to let ghost cultivators kill him. If we can kill him, all our troubles will be solved." "But what if we can't kill him?" If they couldn't kill him, they would only enrage Lu Ye, and the consequences would be unpredictable. In fact, the divine Sea Realm cultivators had considered sending ghost cultivators with high cultivation, but it was too risky. Lu Ye was proficient in formations. Even if he stayed on the heavenly sword peak, he would have set up some warning formations around him. The ghost cultivators might not be able to safely sneak up on him. Once he found them, with his overlord-level strength, the ghost cultivators would not have a good ending. It was because of this concern that the myriad Devil Ridge did not dare to act rashly, and instead sent Wu Jun and Yun Qingyue to negotiate. When they arrived at the sky above the sky, Sword Peak, the two of them looked around and saw the lonely figure sitting on the spirit peak. "Over there," Yun Qingyue said as she controlled her flying spirit tool to descend. Wu Jun followed closely behind. In a moment, the two landed 10 feet in front of Lu Ye. Looking carefully, the two were secretly shocked. There was no other trace of purple lightning on Lu Ye's body. According to the information they had received, after Lu Ye broke into the New Moon Sect's base and killed more than 50 people, the purple lightning on his body was so dense that it almost condensed. However, when he appeared at the Cloud Sun Sect's base half a day later, the purple lightning disappeared. When he killed again, the purple lightning reappeared. But now the purple lightning was gone again. This undoubtedly meant that Lu Ye did have the means to suppress the heavenly punishment. But was there really such a miraculous method in this world? While the two were observing, Lu Ye, who was studying a book, also looked at them. At first glance, he was attracted by Yun Qingyue, and his eyes lit up. A woman who could be called a heavenly maiden by the men of an era was naturally beautiful. Beautiful things could always make people happy. His gaze shifted downwards, and his eyes became much brighter. This small action naturally could not be hidden from Yun Qingyue's eyes. She felt helpless in her heart. This little guy in front of her was indeed as the rumors said. Fortunately, although he was looking, there was no lust in his eyes, and he quickly looked away. Lu Ye glanced at Wu Jun again and didn't pay much attention to him. What was certain was that these two people were not in the Spirit Stream tier, and were not even in the Cloud River tier. At the very least, they were in the True Lake tier, and could not possibly be in the Immortal Ocean tier. What made Lu Ye slightly suspicious was this woman's age. From her appearance, this woman was not older than him. But how could a True Lake stage cultivator be so young? He could not tell her age from her appearance, so he could only say that this woman took good care of herself. "Are you fellow Taoist, Lu Ye of the Jade Blood Sect?" Yun Qingyue spoke first. The youth in front of her was the only person from ancient times to the present who had single-handedly stirred up the Spirit Stream battlefield and rendered the myriad Devil Ridge powerless. Therefore, even though Yun Qingyue's cultivation was much higher than Lu Ye's, she did not have the slightest intention of underestimating him. Moreover, she was a gentlewoman. Before coming here, she had already seen a portrait of Lu Ye, and the appearance matched. However, she still had to ask. Not only was her appearance beautiful and pleasing to the eye, but her voice was also very soft and pleasant to the ear, like a spring breeze caressing one's ears. She was a True Lake stage cultivator, and yet she lowered herself to address Lu Ye as fellow Taoist, showing her sincerity. With her low cultivation and status, she could have called Lu Yi as little friend or even directly called him by his name. "It's me." Lu Yi put away the book in his hand. He secretly wondered why the myriad Devil Ridge had sent such a woman to find him. He quickly came to the conclusion that these two people were not here to deliver the safety money. "What evidence do you have to prove that you are Lu Yi?" Wu Jun suddenly asked. Before coming here, he had already discussed it with Yun Qingyu. Between the two of them, one would play the bad cop, while the other would play the good cop. Negotiations were always like this. This was also the reason why the Myriad Devil Ridge had chosen two people to come here. If both of them were easy to talk to, then there would be no point in negotiating. They would just agree to whatever the other party said. Therefore, one of them had to play the bad cop, so as to show the other party's sincerity and make it easier to bargain. Wu Jun did not have any subjective malice towards Lu Yi. The difference in cultivation was obvious. However, as a cultivator of the Myriad Devil Ridge, Lu Ye's actions made him feel like he had a common enemy. Naturally, he would not be too polite with his words. "What proof do you want?" Lu Yi did not believe that these two people had not seen his portrait or video before coming here. Wu Jun said, "I heard that Lu Yi has a small white beast by his side that never leaves his side. I don't seem to have seen it. It's not here." Yi wanted to send Tao Zhengyu back to the encampment, so Hoopa had to come along. A spirit and a Yao were born together, so they could not be separated too far. Cloud River cultivators barge into the spirit stream battlefield. After killing someone, they will be punished by heaven's secrets. Soul-extinguishing divine lightning is wrapped around them, but I don't see any traces of it. How can you prove that you are Lu Yi? Wu Jun took advantage of the situation to pursue. No matter what, he had to show Lu Yi his strength. He had to let Lu Yi know that the Myriad Devil Ridge was not a soft persimmon that he could bully as he pleased. Most importantly, Wu Jun wanted to know what method Lu Yi used to suppress heaven's secrets punishment. If he could figure this out, then any price would be worth it. Whoosh! A light sound rang out as the mountain pan saber was unsheathed. The saber flashed as 3 crescent-shaped saber lights slashed out towards Wu Jun. Wu Jun did not expect Lu Yi to attack him. Seeing the 3 saber lights slashing towards him, his expression froze. He immediately circulated his spiritual energy and blood to protect his body. He was a body cultivator, and a true lake-stage body cultivator at that. He had already surpassed the stage of relying on spirit tools to protect himself. His own body was his strongest defense. With 3 muffled sounds, Wu Jun's body flashed with spiritual energy. He was forced back a few steps by the 3 saber lights before stabilizing himself. His expression immediately turned serious. Even Yun Qingyu, who was watching from the side, revealed a shocked expression. Only now did she understand that the rumors were true. Lu Yi really did have the strength of an overlord. Those 3 saber lights had already exceeded her understanding of the strength that a spirit stream stage cultivator could display. "Can you prove it now?" Lu Yi slowly sheathed his saber. Wu Jun did not say a word, but his heart was filled with shock. Although it was only 3 saber lights, it was enough for him to see the big picture. If it was a real-life or death battle, with the strength that he could display now, he would not be able to last more than 3 moves against Lu Yi. The younger generation would surpass the older. "Fellow Taoist Lu, please calm down. Senior Martial Brother Wu and I have indeed never seen fellow Taoist Lu before. Moreover, today's matter is of great importance. Senior Martial Brother Wu is just being cautious and has no ill intentions." Saying so, she gracefully bowed towards Lu Yi. "Snowfeather Sex Yun Qingyu greets, fellow Taoist Lu." Wu Jun also unwillingly cupped his fists and said in a muffled voice, "Wind Cloud Manners Wu Jun." Lu Yi had seen Snow Feather Sect and Wind Cloud Manor on the 10-point map. Both were first-grade sects, one from Thunder Prefecture and the other from Serene Prefecture. These were all marked on the 10-point map. Lu Yi nodded slightly and returned the greeting. Jade Blood Sex Lu Yi. Although they were in different camps, the other party was still a true lake stage expert. Since the other party took the initiative to greet him, he could not be rude. "What business do the two of you have here? You don't look like you're here to deliver something," Lu Yi said bluntly. Yun Qingyue said, "To be honest, the Divine Sea Realm cultivators are still discussing whether to agree to fellow Taoist's request. After all, this has happened once before. At that time, the Myriad Devil Ridge compromised. We thought that fellow Taoist would never return after leaving the Spirit Stream battlefield. But who would have thought that in a mere few months the same thing will happen again? The Divine Sea Realm cultivators find it difficult to accept. The main reason was that they did not expect Lu Yi to be able to kill people without restraint on the Spirit Stream battlefield after advancing to the Cloud River tier. Under normal circumstances, high-level cultivators would be restrained if they barged into the Spirit Stream battlefield. But Lu Yi was able to do so without restraint. Senior Marshal Brother Wu and I have come here on the orders of many Divine Sea Realm cultivators to discuss a mutually acceptable proposal with fellow Taoist Lu. Lu Ye's gaze was fixed on Yun Qingyue, who responded with a smile. "What do you want to discuss?" Yun Qingyue said, "No matter what, fellow Taoist Lu is bullying the weak this time. There are rules on the battlefield. Fellow Taoist, you forced your way into the Spirit Stream battlefield as a Cloud River tier cultivator, and even destroyed the encampment of 2 major sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge. This is really not right. If the cultivators of the major forces do this, wouldn't the Spirit Stream battlefield be in chaos in the future? What do you think? In this world, besides me, who else has this ability?" Yun Qingyue was at a loss for words. This was the problem that the Myriad Devil Ridge could not solve. If this problem was not solved, they would never be qualified to negotiate with Lu Yi. "If anyone from the Myriad Devil Ridge wants to copy me, they can do so without any scruples. I have this ability, so I'll set the rules. Those who don't have the ability to do so should obey obediently. As for bullying the weak, in terms of age, most of the cultivators in the core region are older than me. In terms of cultivation, Tianji suppressed my cultivation to the Heavenly 9th tier, so the strength I can exert is also at the Heavenly 9th tier. How can I be bullying the weak?" Yun Qingyue said helplessly, "That's what you say, but fellow Taoist's request is really too harsh. The major sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge have already lost a lot of blood the last time. If you do it again, the major sects will definitely not agree. On this point, the Divine Sea Realm cultivators have already reached a consensus. I know that fellow Taoist has encountered in the hunting ground and is feeling depressed and has suffered huge losses. It's understandable for you to make such a request. But fellow Taoist has already destroyed the encampment of 2 sects and killed many people." Lu Yi stared indifferently at her starry eyes. "Fellow Taoist Yin, if you want to talk nonsense, you don't have to. I'll only wait here for 10 days. Chapter 545. On the Heavenly Sword Peak. Yun Qingyue still wanted to persuade him, but Lu Yi raised his hand and stopped her. "I've already stated my conditions. It's up to you whether you agree or not. There's no need to discuss anything with me." Wu Jun stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "What if we don't agree? Do you really have the guts to attack all the sects in the Myriad Devil Ridge? You think I don't dare?" Lu Yi turned to look at Wu Jun. "I believe fellow Lu has the ability to do so." Wu Jun stared back at him without flinching. A few months ago, so many Myriad Devil Ridge's core sects were destroyed and so many Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were killed. Lu Yi did have the ability to do so, but having the ability didn't mean he would do it. If he did, Grand Heaven Alliance wouldn't have an easy time. When the time came, the entire Spirit Stream battlefield would be in chaos. If Lu Yi had any sense, he wouldn't do such a brainless thing. "You're right. It's unrealistic to attack all the sects in the Myriad Devil Ridge." Lu Yi changed the topic with a leisurely expression. However, there are so many sects in the core sections. Picking 30 or 50 of them won't affect the overall situation. Let's start with Snow Feather Sect and Wind Cloud Mansion. What do you two think? What did we do to provoke you? Yun Qingyue and Wu Jun's expressions changed slightly. If Lu Yi really did this, the myriad Devil Ridge wouldn't be able to deal with him. Compared to the number of sects in the core sects, 30 or 50 of them weren't a lot. Just as Lu Yi said, even if they attacked and occupied them, it wouldn't affect the overall situation. He had already done this a few months ago. At that time, he had attacked and occupied almost 30 sections. If he did it again, who knew which sect he would attack and occupy? If this matter didn't come to a conclusion, every sect in the core sects would feel a sense of urgency. No one dared to bet that their sects would be safe and sound. When the time came, Lu Yi would definitely be willing to pay a price to ensure the safety of their sections. As for Lu Yi saying that he wanted to start with Snow Feather Sect and Wind Cloud Mansion, this was a clear threat. How could Yun Qingyue and Wu Jun not understand? Yun Qingyue felt helpless. It seemed that there wasn't any special effect on her. Although this young man had looked at her when they first met, he didn't treat her well. How could he be so difficult to deal with at such a young age? He hurriedly said, "Fellow Taoist Lu, please calm down. Senior Marshal Brother Wu and I came here to discuss a plan that would satisfy everyone. How about this? The Myriad Devil Ridge is willing to offer a total of 3 million merit points. If fellow Taoist can accept it, I can have someone send it over right now. 3 million merit points worth of resources. Even if calculated according to the price of the Tianji treasure vault, it was still a huge sum of resources. It was enough for any cultivator to enjoy for a lifetime. Although Cloud River tier cultivators could obtain more merit points than Spirit Stream tier cultivators, most Cloud River tier cultivators would only have a few thousand or 10,000 merit points. The terrifying number of merit points, 3 million, was enough to make any Cloud River tier cultivator feel breathless. Lu Ye's expression was calm. Previously, he had received 20 to 30 million merit points worth of goods from the Myriad Demon's Ridge. What was a mere 3 million merit points worth? That was a difference of nearly 10 times. The Myriad Demon Ridge's actions were no different from sending a beggar away. Although it seemed a little unreasonable for him to ask for such an exorbitant price, since ancient times, the two factions had been hostile to each other. Weakening the enemy's capital and strengthening oneself at the same time was something that everyone liked to see. Not to mention, there was a reason for this matter. Lu Yi did not speak, and Yun Qingyue did not speak either. She only waited silently. On the contrary, Wu Jun continued to play the bad guy. He said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist Lu, 3 million merit points worth of goods is already the greatest sincerity that the Myriad Demon's Ridge can express. One cannot be too greedy. Fellow Taoist Yin." Lu Yi ignored Wu Jun and softly called out to Yun Qingyue. Yun Qingyue immediately put on a respectful posture. "Fellow Taoist Lu, please speak. If the Myriad Demon's Ridge really feels that it is difficult, I can also drop my previous proposal. It is convenient for you to give me goods worth 300,000 merit points." Not only was Yun Qingyue not happy, but her expression also became much more serious. "Does fellow Taoist Lu have any other conditions?" The other party suddenly said this, obviously waiting for her to say something. "Give me another golden body token, and this matter will end here." There was definitely more than one golden body token in the world. If Lu Yi could obtain it in the hunting ground, the Myriad Demon's Ridge would definitely have a reserve, but the quantity would definitely not be too much. This was a life-saving trump card for any cultivator. After experiencing the power of the golden body token, Lu Yi naturally could not forget it. Compared to the loss of the golden body token, the 100,000 merit points he spent in the hunting ground to invite the Pillar of Heaven's secrets was almost negligible. Merit points could be slowly accumulated, but the golden body token was something that could only be found by chance. Fellow Taoist, Lu must be joking. I have never seen a golden body token in my life. Where would I find one for you? Wu Jun's face was gloomy. And even if there was one, the Myriad Demon's Ridge would not give it to Lu Yi. This thing was useful even for the divine sea realm. After all, it was a protection bestowed by the heavens. Before the time limit was up, no one could break through the protection. Then there is no need to say more. You can choose one of the two options. Wu Jun growled. Lu Ye, we're here to negotiate with you. Don't push your luck. Lu Ye's fingers stroked the mountain pan saber, his eyes slightly drooping as he said, Do you two think that if I kill you here, the Myriad Demon's Ridge will find a way to avenge you? Or do you two want to see if I can kill you? Wu Jun and Yun Qingyue's expressions changed, and they both became vigilant. What made them rejoice was that Lu Yi did not show any signs of attacking. However, the other party was obviously impatient. If they continued to pester him here, this youth might really attack. If they really died here, it would be a waste. Lu Ye's hands were already stained with the blood of the Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators. Adding the two of them would not make much of a difference. Thinking of this, Yun Qingyue said, We will report our discussion with fellow Taoist Lu as soon as possible. If there is a result, I will inform fellow Taoist Lu. Saying so, she signaled to Wu Jun, and the two of them flew out of heavenly Sword Peak together. After flying for dozens of li, Yun Qingyue finally let out a long breath. Her chest heaved up and down. In that instant, she had truly felt the aura of death. She never thought that she, a true lake realm cultivator, would be so powerless in front of a cloud river realm cultivator. Not far from her, Wu Jun's expression was normal, but there was a trace of lingering fear in his eyes. Send a message back and see what the Spirit Sea Realm cultivators choose, Yun Qingyue said. Wu Jun nodded silently. Immediately, the two of them began to pass the message of this discussion to the cultivators in their own encampments. Then the cultivators in the encampments would pass the message back to the 9 states. However, the two of them knew that the Myriad Demon's Ridge was going to bleed again unless they dared to ignore Lu Ye's threat. However, would anyone dare to ignore Lu Ye's threat? As he said, he would not attack all the encampments. He would only choose 30 to 50 of them, who would dare to bet that their own encampment would not be the unlucky one. This was not a gamble. The most realistic problem was that Lu Ye was going to a Myriad Demon's Ridge encampment and asking for safety money. If they did not pay, he would attack the encampment. How would they choose? Of course, they would pay. There was no need to even think about it. Compared to what they had to pay in their own encampments, what was a few 100,000, 200,000, or 300,000 merit points worth? In this way, Lu Ye would only need to spend some time to go to each of the encampments. He would also be able to achieve his goal without completely destroying the balance of the Spirit Stream battlefield. The two of them did not have to wait for too long. After less than half a day, they received a message. They both checked. As expected, the Spirit Sea Realm cultivators had compromised. Although they were helpless and humiliated, they did not have the right to refuse. However, the Myriad Demon's Ridge also had some requests. The message clearly stated that if Lu Ye did not agree to these requests, the Myriad Demon's Ridge was prepared to suffer losses on both sides. At that time, they would abandon all the encampments and gather the core forces to attack the encampments of the Grand Sky Alliance. This was a complete, indiscriminate destruction. It was also the last bit of stubbornness on the part of the Myriad Demon's Ridge. After reading the message, Yun Qingyue sighed. She did not know whether Lu Ye would agree to these requests or not. Strictly speaking, the Myriad Demon's Ridge was at a disadvantage. If Lu Ye did not agree, no one could do anything to him. After pondering for a while, Yun Qingyue said, Senior Marshal Brother Wu, this time I will go by myself. Wait for me here. Now that they had a final plan, there was no need to play the bad guy. Otherwise, the atmosphere would be awkward again. How can that be? What if Lu Ye wants to attack you? How can you resist? Wu Jun immediately shook his head. Yun Qingyue said, with his strength, even if you and I join forces, we will not be his match. Hearing this, Wu Jun was filled with grief and indignation, but he could not refute it. Senior Martial Brother Wu, wait for me here. I will go and come back quickly. That Lu Ye does not look like an unreasonable person. Be careful, Junior Martial Sister. You and I will keep in touch. Wu Jun nodded. Yun Qingyue took out her flower basket spirit artifact and flew out on it. After a while, she arrived at the Heavenly Sword Peak. The young man was still sitting in the same place, holding a book in his hand and studying it carefully. The sunlight pierced through the sea of clouds and shone on the young man's face, giving him a scholarly aura. However, this was an opponent that gave the entire Myriad Devil Ridge a headache. Moreover, he was holding a butcher's knife, ready to cut off a piece of flesh from the Myriad Devil Ridge. Once this knife fell, all the core sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge would not be able to escape. Fellow cultivator Lu, Yun Qingyue softly called out, and even reached out to stroke the hair by her ear. Her originally beautiful face, at this moment, actually had an additional trace of charm. Is there a result? Lu Ye did not even raise his head. He only looked at the contents of the book, making Yun Qingyue feel powerless. It was as if she had punched cotton. The Divine Sea Realm cultivators have discussed. We can agree to fellow cultivator Lu's request. However, we also have a request that we hope fellow cultivator Lu can agree to. As long as fellow cultivator Lu agrees to this request, all the things you want will be delivered in 2 days. Speak. The Myriad Devil Ridge hopes that fellow cultivator Lu will not set foot on the Spirit Stream battlefield in the future. Chapter 546. On the Heavenly Sword Peak, Lu Ye closed the book in his hand and raised his head to look at Yun Qingyue. His gaze was calm, but the words that came out of his mouth were resolute and decisive. Leave. I won't kill you. Also, tell your Divine Sea Realm cultivators that as long as I'm still alive, I will come to the Spirit Stream battlefield every 6 months. I will select 30 sects from the core circle and attack their bases. As he spoke, he slowly stood up and summoned his flying spirit tool. From the looks of it, he was about to take action. Yun Qingyue was shocked and quickly shouted, Fellow Taoist Lu, please wait. Is there something else? Lu Ye tilted his head and looked at her. The Myriad Devil Ridge wanted him to not set foot on the Spirit Stream battlefield in the future. This was a condition that he couldn't agree to no matter what. Even though he didn't need to set foot on the Spirit Stream battlefield after reaching the Cloud River realm, and he couldn't threaten the Myriad Devil Ridge with anything from the Spirit Stream battlefield in the future, he could do it twice but not thrice. Including this time, he had already blackmailed the Myriad Devil Ridge twice. If he did it again, the Myriad Devil Ridge would definitely not compromise and would fight to the death with Lu Ye. However, whether or not he set foot on the Spirit Stream battlefield was his own subjective choice. He didn't need the Myriad Devil Ridge to force it on him. If the Myriad Devil Ridge insisted on this condition, there was no room for negotiation. Looking at Lu Ye, Yun Qingyue felt powerless. In the end, she sighed and said, Fellow Taoist Lu, we can discuss this. She knew that since they had already reached this point, as one of the parties to the negotiation, they couldn't show any signs of weakness. However, they had no choice now. Lu Ye was about to leave, and if they didn't show any signs of weakness, the 30 Myriad Devil Ridge forces would suffer. Lu Ye even said that he would come every 6 months. Who could endure that? If that really happened, the Spirit Stream realm cultivators of the core circle wouldn't have a stable place to cultivate in the future. The Spirit Stream realm was the foundation of every sect. If this foundation was broken, it would affect the foundation and future development of the entire sect. Standing on the spirit boat, Lu Yi looked at Yun Qingyue and didn't say anything. Yun Qingyue pursed her red lips, and only after a long while did she say, "In the future, unless something similar to what happened at the hunting ground occurs again, fellow Taoist, Lu must not attack the sect's encampment at the Spirit Stream battlefield for no reason." Compared to the previous harsh conditions, these conditions were much more lenient. They didn't restrict Lu Yi from entering and leaving the Spirit Stream battlefield, but correspondingly they restricted him from attacking the sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge. Otherwise, something like what had happened at the hunting ground would have to happen. Although it was just a simple sentence, Lu Yi could understand the Myriad Demon Ridge's good intentions. It was obvious that he had not given up on killing him. In the hunting ground, there had been so many Myriad Demon Ridge powerhouses with cultivations much higher than Lu Ye's. In the end, they had even used a secret technique on their tracking plates, leaving him with nowhere to hide. In the end, he had been surrounded by hundreds and thousands of people. Disregarding the grudges between the two factions, the Myriad Demon Ridge had indeed gone too far in this matter. Lu Yi had been lucky enough to survive, but he had paid a great price to come to the Spirit Stream battlefield to seek revenge. No one could blame him for that. But in the future, if the Myriad Demon Ridge tried to target Lu Yi again, they would definitely be more careful and would not give him another chance to retaliate. This is the bottom line of a divine sea cultivator. If fellow Taoist Lu cannot agree, then please leave. After Yun Qingyue finished speaking, she stared at Lu Yi nervously, not knowing if he would agree. Lu Yi calmly nodded. "Sure, is there anything else?" Although he knew that the Myriad Demon Ridge side had not given up on killing him. To be honest, without such tempering on the road of cultivation, it would be too boring. Since stepping onto the road of cultivation, Lu Yi had always been fighting against opponents stronger than him. This was especially true after his identity as a disciple of the Blue Blood sect was exposed. All kinds of suppression had never stopped. It was also through this kind of tempering that he had been able to advance triumphantly and dominate the Spirit Stream battlefield. It was impossible for the Myriad Demon Ridge side to be afraid of attacking him again because of this matter, and he was in no position to ask the Myriad Demon Ridge to stop targeting him in the future. This was something that both of them knew, so there was no need to point it out. Seeing Lu Yi agree, Yun Qingyue let out a long sigh of relief and her expression relaxed a lot. She had always had a benevolent temperament and really didn't want to see too much blood. Also, every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. If fellow Taoist Lu wants to take revenge in the future, please find the right person and don't implicate some innocent sects. The cultivators who had made things difficult for Lu Yi in the hunting ground all had different origins. But one thing was certain, not all the disciples of the core circle sects had participated. As a result, Lu Ye's conditions this time targeted all the core circle sects, causing many forces to suffer an unexpected calamity. But they couldn't justify themselves. They couldn't say that their disciples didn't participate in the hunting ground incident and ask Lu Yi to be merciful, right? That would be a laughingstock. Of course. Lu Yi nodded. Is there anything else? Yun Qingyue shook her head. There's nothing else. She was slightly dazed. Was it settled just like that? She originally thought that Lu Yi wouldn't agree so easily. She had already prepared many persuasive words, but in the end, none of them came in handy. If there's nothing else, I have two conditions. Yun Qingyue's expression stiffened, and she said nervously, "Please speak, fellow Taoist Lu. In the hunting ground, there's a guy called Xiaoliang who uses a saber. If I'm not wrong, he should be from the Wild Saber sect. I won't go to the Wild Saber sect's encampment, but tell them for me that in addition to 300,000 merit points, I also want 20 sets of saber cultivation experience. Otherwise, I don't mind making a trip." Yun Qingyue carefully noted it down. Okay. Saber cultivation experience was not valuable as long as it was not the only copy. Even if it was the only copy, it could be copied. In the Wild Saber sect, There was no lack of saber cultivation experience, so 20 sets could be easily taken out. Also, Wind Cloud Mansion's resources at 100,000 merit points. Wind Cloud Mansion. Yun Qingyue was speechless. Wasn't Wind Cloud Mansion senior brother Wu Jun's sect? Lu Yi wanted to add 100,000 merit points to Wind Cloud Mansion's resources. This was clearly because he was angry at senior brother Wu Jun's bad attitude during the negotiation. This little guy seemed to be reasonable, but in fact he was narrow-minded. There's a price to pay for playing bad cop. What do you think, fellow Taoist Yin? Lu Yi leisurely glanced at Yun Qingyue. Yun Qingyue smiled bitterly. It seems that fellow Taoist Lu has already seen through it. It was not a profound method to begin with, so there was nothing she could do even if she was seen through. Yun Qingyue sighed and said, I will report your 2 requests, but before that, I would like to ask you to sign a heavenly mystery contract. Okay, there was no guarantee, so signing a heavenly mystery contract was the best restriction. Yun Qingyue immediately took out the heavenly mystery contract, listed out a series of terms, and handed it to Lu Yi for inspection. Lu Yi carefully read it, and after confirming that there were no hidden traps, he pressed his handprint. Yun Qingyue also represented the Myriad Devil Ridge and pressed her handprint. The heavenly mystery contract shone brightly, and the contract was established. After keeping the heavenly mystery contract, Yun Qingyue felt much more relaxed. To be honest, although she was only facing a Cloud River tier cultivator, the burden in her heart was unprecedentedly heavy. Now that the agreement was finally settled, the mission could be considered finished. Then, fellow Taoist Lu, farewell. Yun Qingyue gracefully bowed to Lu Yi, summoned her flower basket spirit tool, and flew away on it. Lu Yi watched her leave. After thinking for a moment, he did not continue reading. Instead, he walked to the side, took out a saber, and chopped down a large tree. He trimmed it flat, then chopped the tree into several sections and busied himself. Time passed. 3 days later, Lu Yi, who was sitting upright on a rock and reading, suddenly spoke softly, Leave the things behind. Whichever sect you belong to can take the wooden tablet. Consider it a return gift from me. When the 10 days are up, I will pay a visit to the sects whose wooden tablets are still here a visit. There was no one in front of him, but in his perception, there were some unfamiliar auras around him. These people were naturally here to deliver supplies, but they were intimidated by his reputation and did not dare to show themselves for the time being. After hearing Lu Yi's words, they looked a few dozen feet in front of him. There were hundreds of wooden tablets, each carved with the name of a sect, corresponding to a different sect in the Myriad Devil Ridge. These wooden tablets were carved by Lu Yi according to the markings on the map, so there was no omission. It was not for convenience, but to deepen his memory. There were so many sects in the Myriad Devil Ridge, and through this method, Louis more or less had some memory of the sects in the core region. In the future, if he encountered a cultivator from the Myriad Devil Ridge, he could inquire about their sect and match their background. The people in the dark finally understood what Lu Yi meant. After a moment, someone revealed himself. He walked in front of Lu Yi and placed down a storage bag. Then, he took one of the many wooden tablets and fled. With someone taking the lead, soon more people walked out. They silently put down their storage bags and took the wooden tablets that belonged to their own sections. As time passed, more and more storage bags piled up in front of Lu Yi, and fewer wooden tablets were left behind. Every cultivator who came to deliver the goods could see the magnificent pile of storage bags. They all knew that the goods were worth tens of millions of merit points, but no one dared to be greedy. It had not been easy for them to reach an agreement with Lu Ye. If something were to happen at this time, not only would Lu Ye not be able to forgive them, even the Myriad Devil Ridge camp would not be able to forgive the sect behind them. At some point, Lu Yi noticed that the wooden tablet of the Wild Blade sect had been taken away. He raised his hand and grabbed the storage bag that was just thrown away. He opened it and found that, in addition to many valuables, there were 20 books of saber cultivation experience. Xia Liang was indeed from the Wild Blade sect. Otherwise, the Wild Blade sect would not have admitted defeat so easily. The last time he went to the Wild Blade sect, he only got 10 books of saber cultivation experience. Lu Yi excitedly flipped through a book of saber cultivation experience. It was a pity that there were no sects in the Haotian Alliance that specialized in saber cultivation. Otherwise, he could go to the Haotian Alliance to further his studies. He would not have to go through so much trouble to ask for saber cultivation experience. What's more, what Lu Yi gave was definitely not the best. With Lu Ye's current strength and attainments in saber arts, these saber arts cultivation experiences would certainly be of some help to him. But it would be difficult for him to make a breakthrough in saber arts. It would be great if the Haotian Alliance could one day attack and occupy the Wild Blade sect. Of course, this was only a dream. The Wild Blade sect was a first-grade sect with a strong foundation. It was not easy to attack and occupy. Chapter 547. Before the 10 days were up, there were only 2 wooden tokens left in the 7 days since Lu Ye's announcement. This meant that there were only 2 sects in the core circle that did not come. The words engraved on these 2 wooden tokens were New Moon Sect and Cloud Sun Sect, respectively. These 2 sects would not come again. Their base had been destroyed and their disciples were dead or injured. Why would they come to deliver supplies to Lu Yi? Lu Yi had expected this and did not mind. He got up and stretched. After several days of rest, he was full of energy. Since the matter at the Spirit Stream battlefield was over, there was no need to stay here any longer. However, before he left, he could take a look at Hua Xiai. He wondered how she was doing now. It was about time for her to advance to the Cloud River realm. He took out his spirit boat and flew towards the 10,000 Poisons forest. On the Heavenly Sword Peak, the wind howled, leaving only 2 wooden tokens with different names engraved on them. Lu Yi had seized a great deal of the Myriad Demons Ridge's resources here twice. Due to that, Heavenly Sword Peak became a thorn in the hearts of many cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge. Many years later, whenever the cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge passed by this place, they would take a detour around it. They would never recklessly step foot on Heavenly Sword Peak. The 10,000 Poisons forest was in the core circle and was not too far from the Heavenly Sword Peak. A day later, when Lu Yi leisurely arrived above the 10,000 Poisons forest, he could not help but be surprised. He found that the 10,000 Poisons forest was different from before. The most obvious change was that the entire 10,000 Poisons forest seemed to have shrunk by a lot. The area that used to be shrouded in poisonous fog was now a safe place. Overall, it had shrunk by at least 30 to 40%. This was the forbidden area of the Spirit Stream battlefield, a place that cultivators were not willing to step into easily. Not only was there a poisonous fog that could kill people, but there were also all kinds of poisonous insects that lived in the poisonous forest. Even the cultivators of Tianjiu were unable to penetrate too deep. Was the shrinking of the 10,000 Poisons forest related to Hua Xiai? Lu Yi knew that Hua Xi's cultivation needed to refine the poisonous fog. However, only a few months had passed and the 10,000 Poisons forest had become like this. If Hua Xiai was given more time, wouldn't this forbidden area disappear completely? This woman was really terrifying. He went straight into the forest and went deep inside. When he reached the wooden house in the forest, he saw a small courtyard with a tall fence and a tightly shut door. Lu Yi went forward and knocked on the door. "Is anyone home?" There was no response. After probing for a bit, he found that there was no sign of life in the wooden house. Hua Xiai is not here? Lu Yi was a little surprised. He thought that Hua Xiai had always been cultivating here. He did not expect that she would disappear without a trace. Now he did not know where she went. Pushing open the door, he walked into the house and looked around. Everything in the house was spotless, which meant that Hua Xiai was still living here, but he didn't know what she was doing now. Walking out of the house, Lu Yi thought for a moment and headed to the place where Hua Xiai had been cultivating. When she lived here before, Hua Xiai didn't cultivate in the house because there was an array set up by Lu Yi. As long as the array was maintained, it could isolate the corrosive, poisonous fog, making it inconvenient for her to cultivate. After walking for a short distance, Lu Yi suddenly heard a soft singing voice and the sound of flowing water. This woman seems to be in a good mood. I wonder what she's doing. He retracted his aura and concealed his figure, preparing to scare her. She had been here all by herself for several months without any communication with the outside world. She hadn't sent him any messages either, so it was clear that she didn't know that he had come to the Spirit Stream battlefield. Suddenly appearing in front of her at this time would definitely give her a pleasant surprise. Following the source of the singing voice, Lu Yi passed through a patch of low shrubs and looked up. His expression stiffened. There was a pool there at some point. The pool was not very big, only a few feet in length and width. The water in the pool rippled with an abnormal green color. Just looking at the pool gave off an extremely uncomfortable feeling. It was easy to imagine how poisonous the water in the pool was. Lu Yi did not know how Hua Xiai had created this pool of poisonous water. When he and Yi were here, this pool had not been there. It was clearly Hua Xi's work. More importantly, Hua Xiai was bathing in the pool at this moment. Her entire body was almost submerged in the pool, and only the area above her neck was exposed. Her two white and tender arms swayed gently on the surface of the water, and occasionally a few delicate toes floated mischievously on the surface of the water. She was softly humming an unknown song. Just by looking at her current state, Lu Yi could already imagine what she looked like. If he was discovered, wouldn't he be treated as a hoodlum and beaten up? He did not expect to see such a scene when he ran over. Just as he was about to quietly retreat, the singing voice suddenly stopped. Immediately afterward, Lu Yi felt a pair of sharp eyes staring at the place where he was hiding. He immediately had an ominous feeling. With a splash, Hua Xiai waved her hand and a green water arrow flew out of the pool, aiming at Lu Ye's location with unparalleled precision. Should I hide, or should I not hide? At this moment, Lu Ye's heart was in knots. If he hid, it would make him look guilty, but if he did not hide, he would definitely be exposed. Before he could make a decision, the water arrow hit his chest. It did not cause any damage, but the water arrow suddenly turned into a green mist and wrapped around Lu Ye's body, breaking his concealment. Then Lu Yi felt a large amount of gray mist ignite in his innate skill tree. Ah! In the pool, Hua Xiai, who only had her head exposed, covered her mouth and exclaimed, "I was wondering what kind of little beast it was. It turns out to be a beast." She looked very shocked, and words that were even more poisonous than the pool water came out of her mouth. "Don't give me that." Lu Yi huffed. "Besides me, who else can enter this damned place? You already guessed it was me, so stop pretending." This could be seen from the fact that the water arrow did not cause any damage. Hua Xiai knew that Lu Yi was immune to poison, so the water arrow's main point was the poison, not its own damage. Of course, if the one who came was not Lu Yi, he would probably be waiting for death at this moment. The poison in the pool water was several times stronger than the poison Lu Yi had experienced in the forest of 1,000 poisons. "I don't know. How would I know?" Hua Xiai pursed her lips and chuckled, reaching out to play with the water. "But why are you here? Isn't the Cloud River battlefield fun?" "Fun, it's too fun." Since his whereabouts had been exposed, Lu Yi simply walked forward to the other side of the pool, squatted down, and scooped up some water. The gray mist on his innate skill tree increased. Considering that his innate skill tree did not have much fuel left, Lu Yi did not dare play around anymore. Otherwise, he would definitely be taken advantage of by Hua Xiai. "Something happened, so I came here. I thought I'd come to see you on the way." "So it was just on the way." Hua Si's expression suddenly became bitter. If someone who did not know the situation saw this, they would probably think that Lu Yi had done something to her and then abandoned her. As she spoke, her hands did not stop moving. Her slender neck, white and tender skin, and some other beautiful things were faintly discernible. Coupled with her wet hair and sorrowful expression, it was truly captivating. If someone said that she did not do it on purpose, Lu Yi would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. "Do I look good?" Hua Si's cheeks flushed red. Under Lu Ye's gaze, she lowered her head slightly, looking very shy. "N, do you want to see more?" Lu Yi immediately perked up. "Can I?" Hua Si's head was still lowered, her voice as soft as a mosquito's. "Of course not for others. But if it's you, it doesn't matter." As she said this, she gently closed her eyes. Her long eyelashes trembled uneasily, and then she slowly stood up. The dark green pool water slid down her smooth neck, outlining the most beautiful scene in the world. Lu Ye's eyes widened to the size of copper bells. "Ha ha ha ha, you big idiot!" Standing in the pool, Hua Si, dressed in a dress, laughed and laughed as much as she could, mocking him. Lu Yi painfully closed his eyes. "I, who had expectations of this woman, am really a piece of trash." But who would have thought that the woman who was soaking in the pool in such an environment would actually be fully clothed? Lu Yi stood up and turned to leave. Hua Si shouted from behind, "Hey, where are you going?" "It's none of your business." His heart, which was ready to enjoy the beautiful scenery, was lifted high and then slammed to the ground, shattering into pieces. "Do you think I don't care about my face?" A moment later, a neatly dressed Hua Si appeared in the small wooden house. She saw Lu Yi lying on a hammock in the small courtyard, his head resting on his hands as he looked at the sky in boredom. Wrapped in a fragrant wind, Hua Si walked to Lu Ye's side and leaned over to look at him. "Are you angry?" "What's there to be angry about?" Lu Yi rolled his eyes. "I'm hungry. Go make something to eat." Although the food Hua Si made didn't look very good, the taste and effect were very good, and they were all very nutritious. "Okay," Hua Si said, her already bent body even lower. Before Lu Yi could come back to his senses, he was suddenly kissed on the forehead. Before she could retreat, Lu Yi grabbed her arm. Hua Si was puzzled. "What are you doing?" "What are you doing? Aren't you angry?" "I'm apologizing to you," she said matter-of-factly. "Am I a child? Do I need you to kiss me on the forehead?" Lu Ye's face was full of resentment. It was clearly a way to comfort a child. "Then what do you want?" Lu Ye's eyes moved down and stared at her red lips. A trace of panic flashed in Hua Si's eyes, and her breathing quickened slightly. But soon, she put on an indifferent look and looked at Lu Yi with a smile. Her beautiful eyes were as bright as the stars. Time passed little by little, and the two of them remained motionless in this position. After a long while, Lu Yi released her. Hua Si jumped back and instinctively sneered, "Coward! Get over here." Lu Yi flew into a rage. "Don't even think about it." Hua Si chuckled and ran even farther. The soft song sounded again, and Hua Si's mood was obviously better. In a moment, the small courtyard was filled with the fragrance of food. Chapter 548. Not long after, in the small courtyard, Lu Yi was stuffing himself with food. The gray mist on the innate skill tree was ferocious, and it looked like he would have to replenish it later. Hua Si sat across from him, occasionally giving him some food. She even said, "The world of flowers is mesmerizing, eat more." Lu Yi pretended not to hear. "Where are Yi and Hupa? Why don't I see them?" They went back to the encampment. Lu Yi replied as he took off 2 storage pouches from his waist and casually tossed them onto the table. Hua Si picked them up and opened them. She said in surprise, "There's so many things. Which sect did you rob this time?" Each storage pouch contained resources from a first-rank sect. The 2 storage pouches were worth a total of 600,000 merit points. Of course, if these things were sold to the Tianji treasury, the value would be at least halved. Lu Yi raised his hand and drew a circle. All the sects in the core region. Not a single one escaped. Hua Xiai didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How did they offend you? It's a long story. There's no need to talk about it. As for how he had been chased in the hunting ground and had been forced to use the golden body medallion, he naturally didn't need to tell Hua Xiai about it. It would only make her worry for no reason. I don't need these things for my cultivation. If you don't need them, then sell them and get some merit points. When we return to the Cloud River battlefield, they'll be useful. Hua Xiai thought for a moment, then nodded. All right, then I'll accept them. What's up with the poisonous water? Lu Yi asked casually. That's the source of the poison in the forest of 1,000 poisons. I accidentally discovered it, so I drew it out. Cultivating like this is much more efficient than simply refining the poisonous mist. It was precisely because he could refine the energy in the pool that the forest of 1,000 poisons had shrunk in such a short time. The changes in the forest of 1,000 poisons had already attracted the attention of many people, but no one knew what was going on. After all, in the spirit stream tier, only Lu Yi could enter and leave this place unscathed. No one else could enter this place. Lu Yi was curious. You're already at the Heaven 9 tier. How can you cultivate? Heaven 9 tier was already at the peak of the Spirit Stream tier. At this tier, unless one reached the Cloud River tier, there was no way to continue cultivating. I have my ways. Hua Xiai pursed her lips. You want to refine all of the origin of poison in this place before advancing to the Cloud River realm? Of course. It's rare to have such an environment for cultivation. Naturally, we have to make good use of it. Is there a similar environment in the Cloudy River battlefield? Not really. I'll keep an eye out for you later. It's also fine if you have the Yao core of a demonic beast. Some demonic beasts' Yao cores are extremely poisonous. You might have something like that in the Heavenly Fate treasure trove. When you reach the Cloud River tier, you can go and buy some. I'll keep an eye out for you. Suddenly, something occurred to him, and he asked, Have you reached the Spirit Stream list? Hua Xiai winked at him playfully. I've been at the top of the Spirit Stream ranking for several months now. Didn't you know? Lu Yi was stunned beyond words. The Spirit Stream champion? You, don't look down on me. Hua Xiai waved 2 fingers in front of him. Lu Yi was certain that Hua Xiai had the strength to reach the Spirit Stream list. Back in the forest of 1,000 poisons, she had killed quite a few cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge. However, if she had been able to occupy the Spirit Stream list for a few months, it would have been somewhat surprising. Of course, Hua Xiai wouldn't joke about something like that with Lu Yi. First, Lu Yi from the Jade Blood sect had occupied the Spirit Stream list for several months. Now, Hua Xiai from the Jade Blood sect had occupied the top spot. Furthermore, from the looks of it, it seemed that she would continue to occupy the top spot for quite some time. That was especially true considering that Hua Xiai had told the public that she was a medical cultivator. Lu Yi really wanted to know how the cultivators of the 9 Heavens continent were feeling right now. Since ancient times, medical cultivators had rarely been able to reach the top 50 of the Spirit Stream list. However, Hua Xiai had actually occupied the top spot. However, after thinking about it carefully, although Hua Xiai was a medical cultivator, after receiving the complete legacy, her medical cultivation had become different from that of ordinary medical cultivators. Most medical cultivators would cultivate magic cultivation or some other schools of thought. That was the only way they could protect themselves to a certain degree. However, Hua Xiai didn't cultivate any schools of thought. Strictly speaking, she could be considered a poison doctor. Since ancient times, medicine and poison were closely related. However, Hua Xiai, a poison doctor, was completely different from a poison doctor in the general sense. If she wanted to, Even her breath could be laced with poison, let alone touch the body. With such a foundation, occupying the top spot of the spirit stream list wasn't a problem at all. The cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge who challenged her didn't even get to see her face before they were poisoned to the point of dizziness. They had no choice but to admit defeat and run for their lives. After several such incidents, no one dared to challenge Hua Xi's position anymore. What the myriad Devil Ridge wanted to know was where this medical cultivator from the Jade Blood Sect was hiding. Up until now, no one had seen her on the Spirit Stream battlefield. She hadn't even appeared in any of the sect's encampments. Although Lu Yi was a nightmare for the myriad Devil Ridge, he would at least show his face in public and stir up trouble. However, Hua Xi was simply an unsolvable mystery. Looking at the entire Spirit Stream battlefield, the Jade Blood Sect from the War Province had been like a huge mountain pressing down on the heads of the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators for the past 2 years. It was so heavy that it made it difficult for them to breathe. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Lu Yi stretched lazily with a satisfied expression on his face. As Hua Xi cleaned up the dishes, she asked, "Are we leaving?" You should come to the Cloud River battlefield soon. I'll wait for you there." "Okay. By the way, do you still have the myriad poison pill you gave me last time? That thing could display great killing power under certain circumstances. For example, in the myriad beast realm's secret realm, if Lu Yi hadn't taken out the myriad poison pill, Fierce Neo wouldn't have been able to deal with him. Although this thing could kill both friend and foe, if used well, it could also turn the tables in an adverse situation." "I do." As Hua Xi spoke, she reached into her clothes and pulled out a handful of green myriad poison pills that still had her body temperature. Lu Ye's eyelids twitched as he looked at the dozen or so myriad poison pills. He didn't stand on ceremony with Hua Xi and took 3 of them and put them in his storage space. "Take more. I can refine them at any time," Hua Xi advised. "No need. A few for self-defense is enough." Although Hua Xi didn't know what price she had to pay to refine these myriad poison pills, she was certain that these things weren't easy to come by and naturally couldn't be squandered. "Let's go." Lu Yi turned around and waved his hand. He took out his spirit boat and stepped onto it. Spirit energy surged and it soared into the sky. Hua Xi stood in place and looked up. Suddenly, she raised her hand to her mouth and shouted, "Husband, be careful!" On the spirit boat, Lu Yi staggered and almost fell. He lowered his head and glared fiercely at Hua Xi, only to see her smiling beautifully. After watching Lu Ye's figure disappear, Hua Xi stretched her body, revealing her beautiful and graceful figure. She was going to be alone again. However, in the past few months, she had become familiar with this kind of life and didn't feel too lonely. However, she should still work hard on her cultivation and try to completely refine the source of deadly poison so that she could meet up with him at the Cloud River battlefield. In any case, she was a medical cultivator. If she stayed by his side, she could help him treat his injuries. The sky was clear, and the scenery was picturesque. Lu Yi sped along. The journey was calm and peaceful. He left the core circle, entered the inner circle, and then circled around the outer circle before returning to the encampment. Actually, after leaving the 10,000 poison forest, he could have used the nearby Tianji Business Alliance's Tianji Pillar to directly teleport back to the encampment. However, that would have cost him a lot of merit points. Since he had nothing to do recently and couldn't enter the Cloud River battlefield, he didn't waste the money. 3 days later, Lu Yi arrived at the encampment of the Jade Blood Sect. Just as he entered the protective array, he heard the crisp cry of an eagle. He looked up at the spirit mountain not far away and saw a familiar figure standing there looking at him. Xiao Hui had returned. Lu Yi set up his spirit tool and flew towards the spirit mountain. He arrived at the eagle's nest and fed Xiao Hui a few fish he caught from the moon lake, teasing it for a while. After a while, he entered the Tianji Hall. Along the way, There were many disciples who respectfully bowed to him. Some were from the sect, while others were from other sections. There were even female cultivators with fiery personalities who took the initiative to talk to him. They looked at Lu Yi with eyes full of worship. After sending away those cultivators, Lu Yi stood in front of the Tianji pillar and placed his hand on it, his mind connected to the Tianji treasure house. He wanted to sell some things to the Tianji treasure house so that he could ensure that he had enough merit points to use. This time, he received a total of 20 to 30 million merit points from the 10,000 Devil Ridge. Even if he sold everything to the Tianji treasure house at a 50% discount, he would still be able to obtain 10 million merit points. However, Lu Yi naturally wasn't going to sell everything. He only needed enough merit points to use temporarily. The rest would be left to his second senior sister to ensure the development of the sect, especially with his second senior sister's spirit C-stage cultivation. She would need a huge amount of resources to cultivate. When cultivators were in the spirit stream stage, they could cultivate in the spirit stream battlefield. When they reached the Cloud River stage, they could enter the Cloud River battlefield. However, when they reached the True Lake stage, there was no specific battlefield. Lu Yi wasn't particularly clear about how True Lake stage and Spirit Sea stage cultivators cultivated. However, it was said that it was related to a sex heritage. The stronger the sex heritage, the faster the True Lake stage and Spirit Sea stage cultivators' cultivation. Therefore, in the entire 9 continents, those powerful sects had generations of powerhouses. On the other hand, those weaker sects could only slowly accumulate and develop, waiting for the day when they could leap over the Dragon Gate. With Shui Yuan's talent, she was already qualified to reach the Spirit Sea stage. However, until half a year ago, she was still a true Lake Stage 9th Order cultivator. It wasn't that she didn't have enough talent. It was just that the Jade Blood sect was too weak and didn't have enough resources to support her cultivation. However, with the rise of Lu Yi, the Jade Blood sect's good days had arrived. Back then, Lu Yi pulled together a Grand Heaven Alliance army in the inner circle and fought everywhere. He forced the 10,000 Devil Ridge to compromise and contribute a batch of resources to calm the situation. Chapter 549. That batch of resources was split among many Grand Heaven Alliance sects, but because of Lu Ye's contribution, the Jade Blood sect took the majority. It was also because of that batch of resources that Shui Yuan was able to step into the Divine Sea realm. But at that time, the sect had to continue to develop, so Shui Yuan did not dare to use too many resources. However, as Lu Yi maneuvered in the core circle and extorted 20 to 30 million worth of resources from the various sects in the core circle, Shui Yuan did not have too many restrictions on using resources for cultivation. It was foreseeable that with another batch of resources, Shui Yuan's cultivation would get higher and higher. After all, in the entire Jade Blood sect, only she and the sect master were in the Divine Sea realm. The sect master did not need to cultivate anymore. If Shui Yuan was willing, she could pour the entire sect's resources on herself. This was an advantage that no Divine Sea realm cultivator could have. Lu Yi was only in the Cloud River realm now, so he did not need to think too deeply about the future. It would not be too late to think about it after he reached the True Lake realm. Inside the Tianji treasury, Lu Yi was picking and choosing from his storage space, selling some things that he and the sect could not use for the time being. His contribution points were increasing at an extremely impressive rate. He only stopped when he reached the 300,000 mark. Close to 300,000 merit points was enough for him to use. Even if he encountered any danger in the future, he could invite the Tianji pillar to escape. But then again, inviting the Tianji pillar did not guarantee that he would be able to escape from danger. In the hunting ground, he was protected by the Golden Body token, so the 1,000 Demons Ridge cultivators could not do anything to him. Without the Golden Body token, even if he invited the Tianji pillar, he might not be able to get close. Therefore, he could only use this method to save his life if he had enough space and time to move. Then, Lu Yi started to buy the earth core fire and devoured it one by one. The fuel for the talent tree needed to be replenished quickly. In the past, he only knew that the talent tree could burn poison. Now, he knew that the talent tree could even burn the soul-extinguishing lightning. In the future, he might be able to burn something else. As time passed, the earth core fire was devoured one by one. What surprised Lu Yi was that the leaf on the talent tree did not react at all. Only after devouring close to 200 earth core fire did a leaf on the talent tree start to show signs of burning. Lu Yi guessed that his encounter this time had caused the talent tree to feel a sense of crisis. Therefore, the earth core fire that it had swallowed before had been stored as fuel. Only when it felt that its reserves were sufficient did it begin to change the leaves. It had been a long time since he had obtained a new spirit rune from the talent tree. Lu Yi was naturally curious about what kind of spirit runes he would obtain next. Therefore, he continued to purchase earth core fire to devour. Lu Yi bought another 100 or so, and when he wanted to buy more, he was surprised to find that the earth core fire was gone. This caused him to be stunned. It turned out that there was a limit to the amount of earth core fire in the Tianji treasury. He had always thought that there was an inexhaustible supply of these items in the Tianji treasury. Thinking about it carefully, Xiao Chun realized that he had taken things for granted. The items in the Tianji treasury did not appear out of thin air. All the treasures had a specific origin. The most popular rumor was that the items in the Tianji treasury were closely related to the Tianji Business Alliance. This was because someone had once sold an item to the Tianji Business Alliance. In the end, they discovered traces of the existence of that item in the Tianji treasury. Thinking about it this way, the earth core fire should have been collected by cultivators from someplace and then sold to the Tianji treasury. Lu Yi was not clear on how this item was collected. The people who used it were either refining pills or refining tools. Therefore, the amount of earth core fire purchased would not be too much. Therefore, there had always been a large amount in the Tianji treasury. But when it came to him, he would purchase tens to hundreds of earth core fire every time. This time, it was even more ridiculous. He had bought hundreds of earth core fire in one go. Without the earth core fire, there should be other types of fire. Lu Ye's mind stirred. He used the Tianji treasury to search for what he wanted. A moment later, many items related to fire appeared in his field of vision. However, these items were all different. Most of them were pill fire. Pill fire was not a flame used to refine pills. Instead, it was the beast core of a fire-attributed demonic beast. Each beast core was like a burning flame. The price was also not the same. The lowest was 500 to 600 merit points, while the highest was thousands to tens of thousands of merit points. Lu Yi also saw something called the extreme frost ice flame. This should be a strange flame. Just by looking at it, it gave people an extremely cold feeling. The flame was also a deep blue color. This thing was ridiculously expensive. It was worth 180,000 merit points. He could not help but think of the Phoenix True Fire he had obtained in the Land of Fire. If this thing was placed in the Tianji treasury, it would probably be worth a lot. It might even be worth more than the extreme frost ice flame. This was because Lu Yi had obtained these things for his talent tree to devour. However, other people could use these strange flames to cultivate some special secret techniques. Naturally, their value could not be mentioned in the same breath. After devouring the Phoenix True Fire, there was an additional Fire Phoenix spirit mark on his talent tree. Lu Yi wanted to know what changes would happen to his talent tree if he devoured the extreme frost ice flame. However, the price of 180,000 merit points dispelled the thought in his mind. Even if he had the capital to take out this amount of merit points, he still decided against it after some consideration. After all, he could not devour the extreme frost ice flame and obtain a similar spirit mark. There was no such spirit mark in the world. If he did not obtain the corresponding spirit mark, it would not be worth it to devour it. Lu Yi bought all the flames below 1,000 merit points. Only then did he stop. Out of nearly 300,000 merit points, he had spent 100,000 of them in one go. Money came and went quickly. This was only the Cloud River stage. When he reached the True Lake stage and the Spirit Sea stage, he would need to spend the most merit points. On the path of cultivation, talent was important. However, without sufficient financial support, it would be difficult to increase one's cultivation rapidly. The talent tree was still devouring the flames. However, Lu Yi was prepared to leave some for future use in case the talent tree ran out of fuel. As he immersed his mind, the leaves on the talent tree started to burn as the flames were devoured one by one. Lu Yi could not help but look forward to it. Compared to the spirit marks he had learned from books, the spirit marks on the talent tree were the ones he could use as he wished. They could often increase his strength in disguise. He continued to search in the Tianji treasury. He wanted to find a spirit tool that could store spirit power. He had used the Fire Phoenix spirit mark twice. The two experiences were still fresh in his mind. It had to be said that sometimes this spiritual pattern could play a decisive role. However, if one wanted to use this spiritual pattern, one would have to pay a huge price. Putting aside the after effects, as long as the situation was safe, he could slowly recuperate. However, the amount of spirit power needed to support the activation of the spirit mark was frighteningly large. This problem had to be solved. Previously, he had used the spirit storage spirit mark to complete the construction of this spirit mark. However, if he had a spirit tool that could store spirit power, it would not be so troublesome. He could store spirit power in the spirit tool in advance and use it when he needed it. There were all kinds of treasures in the Tianji treasury. There should be a lot of spirit tools that could store spirit power. As expected, after a while, hundreds of spirit tools that could store spirit power appeared in Lu Ye's vision. They were all different in quality and price. Even their shapes were strange. Lu Yi picked and finally chose a ring. This item was convenient to wear and difficult to lose. Moreover, its quality was not bad. It was a supreme grade spirit tool. In the category of spirit tools, the quality mainly depended on how many restrictions were built when the spirit tool was forged. Under 9 restrictions, it was a low-grade spirit tool. From 9 to 18 restrictions, it was a medium-grade spirit tool. From 18 to 27, it was a high-grade spirit tool. From 27 to 36, it was a supreme-grade spirit tool. Different quality naturally led to different prices. Generally speaking, supreme-grade spirit tools could be bought from the Tianji treasury for 1,500 to 2,000 merit points. The difference was not too big. From Lu Ye's point of view, a mere 1 to 2,000 merit points was naturally nothing. He could obtain it easily. However, for most Cloud River tier cultivators, 1 to 2,000 merit points was already a lot, especially when every cultivator had more than one spirit tool. As one's cultivation level continued to increase, spirit tools would also need to be replaced. Therefore, cultivators spent a lot of merit points on spirit tools. Of course, one could also use spirit stones to buy spirit tools from the Tianji Business Alliance. However, the prerequisite was that one had to have enough spirit stones. Moreover, if one really wanted to use spirit stones to buy spirit tools, it would be more expensive. The spirit storage ring that Lu Yi chose was a little too expensive. It cost a full 4,000 merit points. Firstly, spirit storage spirit tools were a special kind of spirit tool. They were not weapons that cultivators used to kill others. This kind of spirit tool was more expensive than ordinary spirit tools because there were not many of them. Secondly, this was the smallest spirit storage spirit tool. It was the most convenient to carry around, so it was naturally more expensive. Lu Yi wore the spirit storage ring on his finger. It was very suitable, and it would not affect him when he wielded his saber. Moreover, it had the ability to absorb and store the spirit power that drifted around the surface of a cultivator's body. Therefore, Even if Lu Yi did not actively inject spirit power into it, as long as he wore it for a long time, it would be able to store enough spirit power. When Lu Yi needed to use it, he could directly extract spirit power from it. It was much more efficient than using spirit pills to recover his body. He had bought everything that he needed to buy and sold everything that he needed to sell. Lu Yi checked the battlefield imprint on his body. On the column of merit points, there were 193,643 merit points. Now it was time for the main event, the reward from the hunting list of the hunting ground. After returning from the hunting ground, Lu Yi had not bothered to deal with this matter. Instead, he had charged into the spirit stream battlefield as soon as he had recovered. Now he finally had the time. When the hunting ground had closed, the Tianji Business Alliance had bestowed a golden imprint on the back of Lu Ye's hand. With this imprint, Lu Yi could use any of the Tianji pillars to connect to the Tianji treasure trove and obtain his reward from the Tianji treasure trove. Chapter 550. The reward for first place on the hunting list was what Lu Yi was looking forward to the most. After all, it was a reward that could directly increase his cultivation. For the current him, nothing was more important than this. In the Tianji treasure house, Lu Yi immersed himself in connecting with the golden mark on the back of his hand. In the next moment, his vision blurred and he appeared in a secret room. The secret room wasn't big and there was only a table in the middle. There was nothing else on the table except for two boxes, one big and one small. They looked extremely simple. Each box had a golden mark on it, similar to the one on the back of Lu Ye's hand. This mark looked like a golden octagonal plate, and there was nothing special about it. Walking forward, he raised his hand and opened the bigger box. In an instant, the secret room was filled with a dazzling golden light. When the golden light disappeared, Lu Yi looked down at the box and saw golden spirit sticks imprinted in his vision. He took them out one by one, no more, no less, just 9, including the 2 golden spirit sticks he already had. He now had a total of 11 golden spirit sticks. He also had some spirit sticks of other grades. It was unimaginable that a 3rd order Cloud River Realm cultivator could have so many spirit sticks. Since ancient times, no cultivator in the 9 states had obtained so many spirit sticks at once with such a low cultivation. If it weren't for the reward of the hunting list, Lu Yi wouldn't have been able to do this. The main thing was that the last Fire Phoenix spirit rune had killed many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators, allowing him to reach the top of the hunting list in one fell swoop. With so many spirit sticks in hand, Lu Yi estimated that if he used them all, it wouldn't be difficult for him to reach the 5th order Cloud River Realm. Of course, these 9 golden spirit sticks weren't all his. He still needed to share them with Li Baxian and Feng Yuchan, so he could only get 3 of them. Putting away the spirit sticks, Lu Yi looked at the other, smaller box. The big box contained golden spirit sticks, and the small box should contain the legendary Grade A Spring Spirit. Although Lu Yi had owned a Grade C Spirit land, he had never seen what a Spring Spirit looked like. He raised his hand and opened the small box, but nothing appeared. Looking down, he frowned. Lying in the box was a white and plump cocoon-like thing. It was about the size of a palm, and it seemed to be alive. Lu Yi could feel that it was breathing, and as it breathed, its body was sometimes corporeal and sometimes illusory. This was a Grade A Spring Spirit? It was a little different from what he had imagined. However, since this was a gift from the heavens, it shouldn't be a problem. It was said that as long as one had this item, no matter where one was in the Cloudy River battlefield, one could use it to create a Grade A Spirit Spring, and then create a Grade A Spirit Land. However, this was only limited to the Cloudy River battlefield. The Spirit Springs were unique to the Cloudy River battlefield. There were no other places like this, so the Spirit Springs could only be used in the Cloudy River battlefield. Lu Yi raised his hand and picked up the white and plump Spring Spirit. It felt surprisingly good to the touch. But how was this thing supposed to be kept? It seemed to be alive, so he didn't know if it would be a problem to keep it in his storage bag. After thinking for a while, Lu Yi looked at the small box in front of him. He put the spring spirit back and reached out to grab the box. This box was also a gift from the heavens. Although he didn't know what it was made of, it was definitely something good. He could take it with him. He might be able to use it to store something in the future. The result surprised him. No matter how much strength he used, the box didn't move at all. He tried the big box beside it, and it was the same. He couldn't take this box. The heavens were too stingy. Lu Yi helplessly gave up. He took out the spirit beast bag and kept the spring spirit inside. The storage bag couldn't store living things, but the spirit beast bag could. After collecting the rewards from the hunting list, Lu Ye's mind moved slightly, and he left the heavens' secret treasure house. When he came back to his senses, he stood in front of the heavens' secret pillar. There were many disciples gathered around him, and when they saw him open his eyes, they all bowed. Lu Yi responded and said a few words of encouragement to everyone. Only then did he use the heavens' secret pillar to return to the Jade Blood Sect. Hoopa sensed Lu Ye's return and immediately rushed in from outside, nudging him with his head. "Where's Yi?" Lu Yi asked. Hoopa raised his head and gestured in a certain direction. Lu Yi knew that Yi was cultivating with the sect master. Yi was a Dharma cultivator, and so was the sect master. Naturally, they were easy to teach. Compared to Lu Yi, Yi could be considered the sect master's last disciple. Lu Yi didn't disturb them. He went straight to Shui Yuan's residence. When he found Shui Yuan, he took out all the resources he had collected from outside. Shui Yuan was so shocked that she couldn't speak. So much again! The scene in front of her was familiar. A few months ago, Lu Yi had brought back such a large amount of resources. She didn't expect that in just a few months he would bring it back again. When Lu Yi entered the Spirit Stream battlefield, he said that he was going to take revenge. But looking at the situation now, it wasn't revenge at all. He was going to restock. They had been defeated by the same person twice. She wondered how the Myriad Devil Ridge was feeling right now. "Senior sister, the days ahead will get better and better. You don't have to be thrifty in your cultivation. Right now, you and the sect master are the only two spiritual sea realm cultivators in the sect. The sect master is old, and there are some things he can't do. In the future, the sect will have to trouble you." Shui Yuan nodded. "I understand. You, on the other hand, have worked hard." Although Lin Ming didn't know what Lu Yi had done to cause the Myriad Demon Ridge to compromise once more, if there were no surprises, there would definitely be some fighting and killing. Otherwise, how could such a large faction compromise unless they were forced to the point of no return? "Senior sister, take your time. I'll take my leave first." With that, Lu Yi took out his spirit artifact and flew to the sky, heading straight for the green bamboo peak. Looking at the mountain of resources in front of her, Shui Yuan smiled and shook her head. It was another busy and fulfilling day. Her sect's treasury was almost full in the bedroom of the green bamboo peak. Lu Yi divided the spirit stick in his hand into two. One had 6 golden spirit sticks, which were for Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan. There was also a set of 5 golden spiritual sticks, 1 purple, 1 blue, 2 green, and 4 white. Apart from the golden spiritual sticks, most of the others were spoils of war obtained from killing enemies in the hunting grounds. There were also some that were obtained from opening the lot box. He wasn't in a hurry to use these spirit sticks to cultivate because Yi wasn't here. When Yi was free later, they could cultivate together to improve their strength together. He continued to take out all kinds of flames for the talent tree to devour. As time passed, the leaves on the talent tree burned one by one. Lu Yi didn't stop until there were only 30 earth core fire left. He left a little earth core fire in case he needed it in the future, in case the talent tree ran out of fuel. He began to check the spirit inscriptions on the talent tree's leaves. Just like before, most of the leaves didn't bear complete spirit inscriptions, but some special embedding methods. These things were very useful to Lu Yi. It could be said that they were the foundation of Lu Ye's improvement in the Tao of spirit inscriptions. Otherwise, it wouldn't be enough if he only mastered the construction of spirit inscriptions and didn't know how to embed them. Spirit inscriptions could be used alone or with the help of a formation. If he used a formation, he would need to use this embedding method. Strictly speaking, spirit inscriptions and formations were complementary to each other. It took about 2 to 4 hours for Lu Yi to finish checking all the burning leaves. There were a total of 4 new spirit inscriptions. Moreover, each spirit inscription was more complicated than the previous ones because there was more than one leaf that bore them. For example, the defense and sharpness spirit inscriptions that Lu Yi first obtained were the most basic spirit inscriptions. The construction wasn't complicated, and only one leaf was needed to bear all the information. However, some complicated spirit inscriptions couldn't. For example, the void spirit inscriptions were carried by dozens of leaves. The fire phoenix spirit inscriptions were even more exaggerated. If the outlines of the leaves that bore it were linked together, it would look like a fire phoenix squatting on the talent tree. The more complicated a spirit inscription was, the more leaves it needed to bear. Out of the 3 types of spirit tattoos he had obtained this time, some carried at least 3 to 8 leaves, while some carried at least 3 to 4 leaves. This meant that constructing them was much more difficult than constructing basic spirit inscriptions like defense and sharpness, trapped beast, fog, haze, sky restriction. These were the 4 new spirit inscriptions. Lu Yi had seen every type of spiritual inscription in books. Among them, he had even set up the beast-trapping spiritual inscription in the hunting ground. This spiritual inscription was also a practical type of spiritual inscription that he had learned from books in addition to the void spirit inscription. The confinement array he had arranged before used the beast-trapping spirit inscriptions as its core. In the hunting ground, he had been able to stall the pursuit of a 9th Order Cloud River Realm Master twice and escape with his life. The huge role of this spirit inscription was self-evident. However, learning it from books and activating it from the talent tree were 2 different things for Lu Yi. The self-taught spirit inscriptions had a risk of failure and were not very efficient, but the spirit inscriptions from the talent tree could be used at will. Using these spirit inscriptions to arrange a confinement array would be much more efficient. As the name implied, the fog spirit inscriptions could create a dense fog. The more energy it consumed, the denser the fog would become. These spirit inscriptions were specially used to arrange arrays. With the fog spirit inscriptions as its core, a bewildering array could be arranged. As long as the arrangement was delicate enough and supplemented by some other means, it could completely confuse the enemy. The mirage spirit inscriptions and the fog spirit inscriptions had the same effect. But what they created was not fog, but some illusions, achieving the effect of making the illusion real. Similarly, these spirit inscriptions could also be used as the core of a spirit array to arrange an illusion array. If the fog and the mirage spirit inscriptions were combined, it would be a proper illusion array. As for the sky restriction, as the name implied, it had the power to prohibit flying in the air. If it was arranged with this as its core, it would be a sky restriction array. The 4 spirit inscriptions did not improve Lu Ye's strength much, but it gave him more options in array Dao. Lu Yi could not help but have a strange feeling in his heart. Last time, he got 4 spirit inscriptions from the talent tree, and as a result, he went further and further on the road of array cultivation. This time, he got 4 spirit inscriptions and went further and further on the road of array cultivation. He did not know what spirit inscriptions he would get next time. Chapter 551. Leaving the Tsueju Peak, he went straight to the Mingxin Peak. On this trip back, he had yet to pay his respects to Madame Yun. Furthermore, it was time for him to get a new batch of books. The books that he had taken from Madame Yun the last time, he had read them over and over again. He had already memorized them thoroughly. The Mingxin Peak was always so peaceful. Although some disciples of the Jade Blood sect could freely enter and leave the sect and station, no one dared to set foot on the Mingxin Peak at will. Only Lu Yi could come here at any time without notice. When he arrived at the Mingxin Peak, he met Madame Yun under the guidance of the mute maid. Lu Yi saluted respectfully. Lu Yi respected Madame Yun very much. Although he embarked on the path of spiritual tattooist because of the talent tree, strictly speaking, Madame Yun was his real guide on this path. Although they were not master and disciple in name, they were master and disciple in reality. Madame Yin was undoubtedly very satisfied with Lu Ye's comprehension and talent. She even had the idea of accepting Lu Yi as her disciple, but she had to give up for some reason. Even so, Madame Yin didn't hide anything from Lu Yi. She really regarded him as her disciple and taught him everything she knew. In the hall, Madame Yun tested Lu Ye's recent cultivation of spiritual tattoos as usual. Lu Yi answered her questions one by one and demonstrated them. Although he didn't get any praise from Madame Yin, from the look in her eyes, he knew that she was very satisfied with Lu Ye's growth in spiritual tattoos. Then Madame Yun constructed some complicated spiritual tattoos for him to crack, and Lu Yi completed all of them without any mistake. Search. This game, in which Madame Yun constructed spiritual tattoos and Lu Yi cracked them, was a means to quickly improve a spiritual tattooist's construction of spiritual tattoos. In Madame Yun's words, spiritual tattooists who knew how to construct spiritual tattoos were just copying. Only when they understood how to crack a spiritual tattoo quickly could they really master it. After the test, Madame Yun said with a smile, "Now you can be regarded as a real spiritual tattooist. However, modesty brings benefits and complacency brings harm. Remember not to be arrogant and complacent." "Yes," Lu Yi answered respectfully. After thinking for a while, he said, "I want to learn the way of tattooing from Madame Yun." "Oh." Madame Yun was a little surprised. "Why do you suddenly want to learn this? You have some attainments in Array Dao. Why don't you continue to study Array Dao?" Lu Yi said, "Disciple naturally won't give up on the matter of formation Dao. But apart from this, disciple also wishes to delve into the Tao of inscriptions. Although the sect is still developing, it hasn't been very long, and the disciple's foundations are weak. In the future, when we leave the Spirit Stream battlefield and enter the Cloud River battlefield, there will definitely be some friction. If I can learn the Tao of inscription, I can help them inscribe some spirit marks and provide them with some assistance." Madame Yin could not help but laugh when she heard this. These should be things that old fart should consider. You only need to focus on your cultivation. The old fart she was talking about was naturally the sect leader. Lu Yi said, "Disciple also wants to do his part. Besides, there's no harm in having more skills. Understanding more things might not be beneficial, but there's no harm in doing so." Madame Yun nodded slightly. "Since you want to learn, then learn. Inscription Master is a branch of spiritual tattooists. You have tattoos on your body, so you should know what tattoos are." Lu Yi nodded. "However, being able to construct a spiritual tattoo doesn't mean that you can inscribe this spiritual tattoo on someone else's body. This requires a very exquisite technique and control of one's spiritual power. In addition, it also requires some special materials to assist. These materials are not limited to different beast blood, medicinal herbs, and so on. The materials required for each type of inscription are often different." Since she had promised to teach Lu Yi the Tao of inscription, Madame Yun directly began to explain various common knowledge of inscription to him. Although Lu Yi already understood some things, he still listened attentively. To anyone, being able to listen to the teachings of a top-notch spiritual tattoo expert like Madame Yun was a rare opportunity. And through Madame Yun's explanation, Lu Yi slowly gained a systematic understanding of the Tao of inscription. Only then did he realize that the Tao of inscription was not as simple as he had imagined. However, to Lu Yi, if he wanted to cultivate the Tao of inscription, he had some unique advantages. The control of spiritual power and the strength of his mind were all his advantages. Cultivators of the same level should not be able to surpass him in these aspects. Time slowly passed. Madame Yun taught seriously for a few hours before stopping and calling Lu Yi, "Follow me." Lu Yi stood up and followed her. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the library. Madame Yun swept her gaze over the library. With a wave of her hand, books of varying thickness flew out from the bookshelves around them. There were about a dozen books. She placed these books in front of Lu Yi. These books were written by different inscription masters. They contain their own basic understanding of the Tao of inscription. Take a look. I will teach you tomorrow. Yes. Reading books was not a torture for Lu Yi. Ever since he started cultivating the Tao of spirit tattoo with Madame Yin, he had read at least a few hundred books on the Tao of spirit tattoo. In the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield, when he was free, he liked to hold a book and study it. This had almost become a habit of his. Lu Yi casually flipped open a book and read it seriously. Madame Yin had already left. After an entire night, Lu Yi finished reading the books. After all, these books were not too profound, so it was not difficult to read them. He also gained a lot in his heart. The next day, Madame Yun came directly to the library and continued to teach Lu Yi more knowledge of the Tao of inscription. This went back and forth. During the day, Madame Yun would teach by word and example. At night, Lu Yi would read books in the hidden study. Her days passed peacefully, until 10 days later, after testing Lu Ye's theoretical knowledge of the Tao of inscription, Madame Yun nodded in satisfaction. You have more or less understood the foundation of the Tao of inscription. The rest is to get the hang of it. The Tao of inscription is very important in practice, and there is a lot of risk. This is different from other branches of spirit tattoo masters. In any case, inscription could only be effective when it was done on a living person. If an inscription master was not skilled enough and his skills were not exquisite enough, it would be a small matter if the inscription master failed to inscribe. It might even cause some irreparable damage to the target. If that was the case, then things would be troublesome. Before you practice, you need to have a set of tools that belong to you. As Madame Yin said this, she stretched out her hand and a jade box appeared in her palm. She pushed it in front of Lu Yi. This is a set of needles that I used in my early years. I have not used it for many years. Today, I will give it to you. Lu Yi received it respectfully. Thank you, madam. This was a great help to him. If Madame Yin did not give it to him, he would have to find a way to find a set of needles. Perhaps the Tianji treasury would sell it, but it would definitely cost a lot of merit points. Moreover, the quality would definitely not be as good as the set that Madame Yin gave him. When he opened the jade box, he saw 49 needles of different lengths neatly arranged in the box. He casually picked one up and found that the needle was hollow. This was mainly to make it convenient to inject some materials, such as a mixture of beast blood and medicinal herbs. Moreover, not only were these inscription patterns of different lengths, even their softness and hardness were different. Some inscription patterns were incomparably hard, while others were extremely soft. Every needle had its own place to be used. When an inscription master wanted to inscribe an inscription master, he would often need to use many different needles. When practicing inscription, you have to choose some simple inscription spirit inscriptions. Through this practice, you will become familiar with the inscription technique. In the future, when your skills are refined, you will be able to choose more complicated inscriptions. Yes, Lu Yi replied. He then asked curiously, "But madam, what should I use to practice?" Madame Yun revealed a meaningful smile. The first target of an inscription master's practice is only one person, and that is yourself. The corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. He originally wanted to catch some wild beasts or demonic beasts to practice. Only by practicing on your own body will you be able to accurately grasp the essence of inscription. Only then will you be able to better familiarize yourself with the strength of the needles. After all, the feedback from your own body is the most realistic and clear. When you first practice, don't think of reaching the heavens in a single step and directly inscribe spirit inscriptions. You have to start from yin and yang. Treat it as if you are learning the Tao of spirit inscriptions from the beginning. This disciple understands. Madame Yun smiled. With a wave of her hand, a jade bottle appeared in front of Lu Yi. There is some medicinal liquid in the bottle. Use this to practice. Even if you fail, it won't cause any harm to your body. After a short while, Madame Yun left. Lu Yi looked at the needles and the bottle of medicinal liquid in front of him. After thinking for a while, he lifted his right sleeve and revealed his arm. He picked up a needle with his left hand, dipped it in some medicinal liquid, and quickly and decisively pierced his right arm. He had already memorized the main points of the needle. It had to be fast, accurate, and stable. Moreover, the instant the needle pierced his arm, he had to inject the material dipped in the needle into his body to form a basic element. Every needle could only form one basic element. In other words, if he wanted to inscribe a spirit inscription, he had to insert as many needles as there were yin and yang elements in the spirit inscription. This was undoubtedly a huge test for an inscription master's mind and control of spirit inscriptions. The first needle fell, and as expected, it failed. It was easy for Lu Yi to use spirit inscriptions to activate and construct yin and yang elements. However, the difficulty of using needles to construct yin and yang elements was not ordinary. Madame Yin said that he should treat it as starting from the beginning to practice the Tao of spirit inscriptions. This was not wrong. Lu Yi felt that he was like a beginner who was dabbling in spirit inscriptions for the first time. Everything had to start from the beginning. The first failure, the second failure, the third failure, the fourth failure. Fine needle holes continuously appeared on Lu Ye's right arm. There was a faint purple color in the needle holes. That was the color of the medicinal liquid. It wasn't until more than 2 hours later, when Lu Ye's needles fell, that a foundational element was finally completed. He raised his eyebrows and immediately dipped the needle in the medicinal liquid again. The second needle was inserted. Chapter 552. Lu Yi continued to practice. There was no place to insert needles on his right arm, so he inserted needles on his thigh. His thigh was covered with needle holes, so he moved to his lower abdomen. His physique was strong, and such needle holes had no effect on him. After one night, he could insert needles again. His body, on the other hand, was covered in a purple hue because of the purple medicinal juice. His skill was growing little by little at a speed visible to the naked eye, and Lu Yi could insert more and more basic elements. 2 days later, he could already insert 9 spirit tattoos. This kind of number spirit tattoo was the simplest spirit tattoo. It was only constructed by 9 basic elements. However, although it was also a spirit tattoo, it did not have any special function, so it was usually used by beginners to practice. Lu Yi had practiced this before. This time, he changed the way of inscribing and practiced again. The difficulty was undoubtedly much higher than before. With the first successful experience, he undoubtedly had a deeper understanding and comprehension of the way of inscribing. As time passed, the spirit tattoos that Lu Yi could inscribe became more and more complicated. It had to be said that inscribing was indeed very taxing on the mind. The spirit tattoos that he was inscribing now were only the simplest ones. For something like the void spirit tattoo, there were more than 3,000 basic elements, so he had to insert more than 3,000 needles. There could not be any mistakes or pauses during this period. It had to be done in one go. If the mind was not strong enough, it would be difficult to persist. In the blink of an eye, a few days later, in the hidden study, as Lu Yi inserted the last needle, a tattoo was formed on his right arm. This tattoo was not a number spirit tattoo, but a sharp spirit tattoo that he had first obtained from the talent tree. The shape of the spirit tattoo looked like an arrow cluster. Being able to successfully inscribe such a practical spirit tattoo undoubtedly meant that Lu Yi had already entered the door of the way of inscribing. The rest was to continue practicing and accumulating experience. However, because this tattoo was purely made of medicinal juice, it only looked good and could not exert any power. If it was made with a suitable mixture of beast blood and medicinal juice, it would be a real tattoo. If spiritual power was injected into it, this spirit tattoo could exert a sharp power. Lu Yi let out a long breath. Only now did he feel a trace of fatigue. It had been almost half a month since he entered Bright Heart Peak. During this time he had not rested. Even if his physique was strong, he could not hold on any longer. It was time to bid farewell to Madame Yin. For a cultivator, the most important thing was to improve his cultivation realm. The way of spiritual tattoos was just a decoration on the road to becoming stronger. Lu Yi had the talent and foundation, but he would not neglect the essentials for that. He took out the books that he had read from his storage space and put them back on the bookshelf. He then looked for some books that he had not read and put them away. The books that he had chosen this time were mostly related to the way of inscriptions. Since he had learned the way of inscriptions from Madame Yin, he would naturally work hard in this area in his spare time. He walked out of the library and met Madame Yin. Knowing the reason for his visit, Madame Yin didn't urge him to stay. She only taught him some knowledge about the Tao of inscriptions before letting him go. Lu Yi bowed and expressed his thanks before leaving. Bathing in the sunlight for half a month, Lu Yi couldn't help but squint. Returning to Jade Bamboo Peak, Lu Yi first took a bath and changed into a clean set of clothes. Then he fell into a deep sleep. When one's cultivation reached the Cloud River tier, the need for sleep was already very low. When cultivators meditated and cultivated, it was actually a kind of half-rest state. As long as one's cultivation efficiency was high enough, they would be full of energy. However, eating and sleeping were human nature. This was hard to erase, no matter how high one's cultivation was. Lu Yi was awakened by a lick. Opening his eyes, he saw Hupo's head in front of him, its large tongue licking his face happily. Pushing it away, Lu Yi sat up. He didn't know how long he had slept, but his exhaustion had long been swept away. Rubbing his face, he regained his energy. The aroma of food came from outside. Lu Yi walked out curiously, but saw a table full of food on the table outside. It was still steaming hot. Obviously, it had been prepared not long ago. The door was pushed open, and Yi walked in with a plate of food. Seeing Lu Yi, she said in surprise, "You're awake." Lu Yi answered and sat at the table. He picked up the chopsticks and started eating. Somewhat surprised, he asked, "You made this?" Yi giggled. "Second senior sister made it. I brought it over." No wonder the taste was exactly the same as second senior sister's. Thinking about it, Yi probably didn't have such skills. As he ate, he chatted casually with Yi. The table full of food was quickly swept clean by Lu Yi. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Yi cleared the table, and Lu Yi walked out of the main hall to stretch his body. An hour later, in the main hall, Lu Yi and Yi sat facing each other, with Hupa between them. "It's starting," Lu Yi said. Yi answered excitedly, "It's ready." Lu Yi smiled and took out all the spirit sticks that belonged to him from his storage space. Then he casually crushed a white spirit stick. A white vortex appeared, and a large amount of pure spiritual power surged out from that vortex. It condensed and lingered in front of the two people and one tiger. There was almost no need to refine it. Just by breathing, the power could flow into the body and become the capital of one's strength. The white spirit stick didn't last long. After a stick of incense worth of time, it completely disappeared. Lu Yi raised his hand and crushed another one. When the white spirit stick was exhausted, he used green. When the green spirit stick was exhausted, he used blue. After that, he used purple. Finally, he used 5 golden spirit sticks. When the effect of the second golden spirit stick was about to be exhausted, Lu Yi clearly felt that the river of spiritual power in his body had reached a limit, and the familiar feeling of fullness came again. This was a sign of a breakthrough. He had broken through to the third order realm when he returned from the sealed world in the realm of beasts, and he had even taken a step towards the third order realm. Later, he had obtained a purple spirit lot from Xia Qianqian, and after so many days of swallowing spirit pills, he was not far from the fourth order realm. Now that he was about to break through, it was a matter of course. More and more spiritual power was being swallowed and refined, pouring into his body and increasing the volume of the river of spiritual power. Until a certain moment, Lu Yi felt the river of spiritual power in his body swell, and then the feeling of fullness suddenly disappeared, as if something had been broken, replaced by an indescribable sense of comfort. A wave of qi swept out in all directions. Fourth order Cloud River Realm. Compared to his previous breakthroughs, the time it took for him to break through from the third order to the fourth order was undoubtedly much longer, but this was mainly because of the recent delay. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken so long. If he had been a fourth order Cloud River Realm cultivator in the hunting ground, killing the seventh order He Bing wouldn't have been so troublesome. However, in the hunting ground, Lu Yi didn't dare to use the spirit stick to improve his strength. After all, a golden spirit stick could last for a day and night. If he encountered an enemy during this time, it would be too wasteful. Almost at the same time as he broke through to the fourth order Cloud River Realm, Yi and Hoopa also experienced changes. The light on Yi's body flashed fiercely, and Hoopo's vitality also surged for a moment. Obviously, they had also broken through. However, Yi was a spirit body and Hoopo was a monster beast, so it wasn't easy to distinguish their cultivation realms. But judging from the spiritual energy fluctuations they showed, they had undoubtedly stepped into the second order Cloud River Realm. There were still 3 golden spirit sticks left, so he continued to cultivate. 3 days later, all the spirit sticks were consumed. The 2 people and 1 tiger didn't break through again. Lu Yi was still a fourth order cultivator, but after consuming 3 golden spirit sticks, he had accumulated quite a bit of fourth order cultivation. As for Hoopa and Yi, they were both stuck at the third order Cloud River Realm. As long as they cultivated for a while, they should be able to break through. As one's cultivation improved, the consumption of resources would also increase, so naturally, the more spirit sticks one had, the better. The spirit sticks Lu Yi obtained needed to be shared with Yi and Hoopa. Fortunately, his cultivation environment wasn't too harsh. Having a good environment was naturally good, but it didn't matter if it wasn't. He could just take a spirit pill. This was an advantage that no cultivator could have. Several days had passed since the 1-month deadline with Li Baxian, so it was time to join him in the Cloud River battlefield. There were still 6 golden spirit sticks left in his hand, but he had to give them to his 4th senior brother and Feng Yuchan. After all, these things belonged to them. There was also a grade A spring spirit, which he had to find a suitable place to settle down in the Cloud River battlefield. Lu Yi didn't have high requirements for his cultivation environment, but Yi still needed it. 4th senior brother and Feng Yuchan also needed it. And there was also giant armor. Thinking of giant armor, Lu Ye's eyes couldn't help but twitch. The last time he contacted giant armor was nearly 2 months ago. At that time, this guy got lost in the Cloud River battlefield, so Lu Yi told him to wait for him in a certain place. After such a long time, he didn't know how giant armor was doing. Speaking of which, he had been in the hunting ground for nearly 20 days, but giant armor hadn't contacted him. After packing up a little, Lu Yi brought Hoopa and Yi out of Green Bamboo Peak and soon arrived at Principal Defender Peak. He met Shui Yuan and told her that he wanted to enter the Cloudy River battlefield. Shui Yuan did not stop him and only reminded him to be careful. After all, for cultivators of the Cloudy River tier, entering the Cloudy River battlefield to cultivate was the fastest way to increase their cultivation level, because only there could cultivators obtain spirit lots. After bidding farewell to Shui Yuan, Lu Yi went straight to the Tianji Hall. He raised his hand and pressed on the Tianji pillar, connecting his mind to the Cloud River battlefield. In the next moment, a large number of light spots appeared in his consciousness. Each light spot represented a Tianji pillar. Lu Yi could choose any light spot and enter the location of the Tianji pillar. Last time, he entered like this, directly entering a Tianji business alliance. However, among the large number of light spots, there was one light spot that was particularly special. The other light spots were all white, and only this light spot was blue. After thinking for a moment, Lu Yi realized that this blue light spot represented the Tianji pillar that he had invited from the hunting ground.